And go ahead, Karen, we should be good.
You ready for roll?
We'll call the meeting. Yes, I am. Go ahead.
Okay, David?
Oh,
He's
geez.
muted. I see you. Gregory?
Gregory, if you
I see he's there too, but
perfect.
Terry? I see Terry. Tanya? I see
Yep.
Tanya. Mike? I see Mike. Cindy? I see Cindy. John? I see John. And Peter? He's here too. And Karen's here, so we're all here.
What was that kid show? Is that Reading Rainbow where they look through the thing and that's what it felt like. Okay, well, I just want to welcome everybody who has joined us so far to our committee of the whole. As you can see, this is a different format than what we usually have. We have the privilege of having our meeting this evening facilitated by Mr. Reggie Jackson. I will give you a brief biography of Mr. Jackson, so you have a chance to kind of familiarize yourself with him and just know what he brings to the table and his experience in helping us navigate through this meeting tonight. Reggie Jackson is an award-winning journalist, a sought-after speaker, researcher, and writer with a deep, comprehensive knowledge of how our country's racial hierarchy developed historically and its impact on our lives today. Reggie is a protege of his mentor, Dr. James Cameron, lynching survivor and founder of America's Black Holocaust Museum. Reggie is a graduate of Concordia University, co-founder of Nurturing Diversity Partners, and head docent of America's Black Holocaust Museum. He received the 2015 Eliminating Racism Award from Southeast Wisconsin's YWCA, 2016 Courageous Love Award from the First Unitarian Society, the 2017 Frank P. Ziedler Public Service Award from the City of Milwaukee, the first ever Milwaukee Inner-City Congregations Allied for Hope Legacy Award in 2018, and the 2018 Robert H. Siebert Social Justice Award from the Jewish Community Relations Council. He received the 2019 Frank P. Ziedler Legacy Award from the Frank Ziedler Center for Public Discussion. In 2016, he accepted a position as community relations writer for the Milwaukee Independent. He was invited to be a contributing writer for the Huffington Post in October 2019. His 2018 column for the Milwaukee Independent won the 2017 Silver Award for Best Online Column from the Milwaukee Press Club, the 2018 Gold Award, and the 2019 Bronze Award for the Best Online Column, and 2017 Award for Best Written Column. Reggie has served as a race relations expert for CNN, Wisconsin Public Radio, the Chicago Tribune, National Public Radio, Reuters News Service, the BBC, and several statewide news channels. In May 2018, he was appointed as a member of the Milwaukee Equal Rights Commission by Mayor Tom Barrett and the Milwaukee Common Council. For over a decade, Reggie has been a much sought-after speaker and presenter at churches, libraries, businesses, colleges, and universities around the country. From 2008 to 2010, he taught contemporary social problems and introductions to sociology as an adjunct professor at Concordia University. So welcome, Reggie. I will turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the introduction. It's great to be with you all here virtually. Wish it could be in person. Obviously, that's not possible. So appreciate you all tuning in tonight to our virtual town hall meeting. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you to help facilitate the meeting. And I want to begin by just saying thank you to all of the community there. Obviously, these are some difficult times for all of us dealing with the pandemic and also, you know, in the midst of protests across the country. And, you know, we really want tonight's town hall meeting to be an opportunity for the community to ask questions, make comments to the mayor, as well as the police chief about things that are going on currently. So we had some people that submitted some questions ahead of time. We're going to go through those questions. There are quite a few of those. And we're also going to utilize Nate Torres, the city administrator, who will moderate the chat. And if you would like to send questions through chat, you can send them directly to us, and then Nate will pull those up and we can address those questions as well. And in the last part of the meeting, we're going to open it up for those of you who want to speak through the Zoom. So we're going to allow you to speak, whether that be asking questions or making comments. We want to give you that opportunity to do that in the latter part of the meeting. One of the things I think we need to start with, though, is that we have a certain set of rules what we want to follow tonight during the town hall, so that it is as respectful a space as possible for all participants. My company, Nurturing Diversity Partners, we use a tool when we do facilitated dialogues that we call the Caring Circle. And I think that these rules are applicable for tonight as well. They're very simple rules that we ask everyone to follow. And I'll just kind of go through and explain what those are. The first rule is caring for yourself. That means that during the course of the evening, only talk about things that you're comfortable talking about. Don't feel pressured to talk about things that you're uncomfortable talking about. The next rule is caring for others. That means being respectful of others' opinions, whether you agree or disagree, not interrupting people when they are speaking, not attacking people. We want to make sure that no one feels uncomfortable in the space tonight. And then the next one is listen carefully. What this means is listening with care. Oftentimes what we do is we don't listen to hear what people are saying. We listen with anticipation of what our response will be to what they have to say. So we want you to kind of turn on that part of your brain that is, allows you to be an active listener. That means that you hear everything the person has to say without editorializing in your mind. Just hear people out and give them opportunity to share exactly what they want to share. And then last, caring for confidentiality. Obviously, we want to make sure that those who want to be anonymous in this space have the opportunity. There are oftentimes when these types of things happen that people are very nervous about asking questions and they don't want their identity exposed to people because they're afraid of maybe retribution or something of that nature. So we are allowing people to be anonymous if they choose to tonight. These are some very simple rules that we ask you to follow. When we get to the part where we're going to allow you all to make questions or comments, we ask right away that you limit those questions and or comments to about 2 minutes or so that we can make sure that we get as many voices into the conversation as possible and that we get through all of the questions that we have. So those are our rules for communication tonight. We're hoping that those are acceptable to everyone on the call. Next thing I want to do is to read the bios of your mayor and your police chief. And we'll start with Mayor Karen Mitchell. She was reelected to her second term as mayor in April of this year. Prior to that, she spent 17 years working in the United States Merchant Marines. 14 of those years were spent as chief steward, where she worked alongside men and women from many different socioeconomic and cultural backgrounds from around the world. Through her career, she lived in or near San Francisco, Seattle, Norfolk, as well as Baltimore, while maintaining her roots back here in Viroqua, Wisconsin. Upon her retirement from the Merchant Marines, she returned to Viroqua and began a career in organic inspection and certification. Shortly after her return home, she was appointed to the Vernon County Board of Supervisors to complete a 2-year term that had become vacant. In 2018, she was elected to serve the community of Viroqua as mayor and also had the opportunity to begin serving on the board of directors for the Viroqua Food Co-op since 2016. Since her return here to the Driftless region, she met and married her husband, David Higgins, and they share a home with their pets. And her dad, Jake, lives not far away from this community. So now I'd like to introduce as well, our chief of Viroqua, give you a little bit about his background, his career. Chief Neefeld's career as a law enforcement officer began back in 2005, where he worked as a part-time officer for the Viroqua Police Department. He also worked as a part-time officer for the Trimpolo Police Department, and I'm probably butchering that name, right? Not in that part of the state. He served in that capacity from 2005 through 2007. He served also as a full-time corrections officer for the Vernon County Sheriff's Department from 2005 through 2007. More recently, he has served as a full-time police officer with the police department in somebody correct me. How do you say this word? Trimpolo. Okay, I got it now. Trimpolo Police Department is full-time officer from 2007 through 2011. He was appointed to be the chief of police there, and he served in that capacity from 2011 through 2019. And he's also been an instructor at Western Technical College in Sparta, Wisconsin since 2011. He's an adjunct professor teaching numerous topics at the Police Recruit Academy, which is held there twice a year. And he develops lesson plans and provides classroom instruction to specific topics of that course. And obviously, you know that he has been appointed as the police chief of your town, and that appointment took place in September of last year. So he is fairly new to the position, and obviously because of the COVID outbreak, he hasn't had the opportunity to be out in the public getting to know you all as well as he wanted to. But he is responsible for a 13 officer force, 9 full-time officers, 4 part-time officers that provides law enforcement services for the community of approximately 4,400 residents there. His duties include, but are not limited to, budgeting, initiating community-oriented policing programs, scheduling officer reviews and evaluations, training, policy and procedure review, handling grievances and citizen complaints, road patrol, investigations, maintaining positive morale within the department employees, and preserving positive communication with the governing body and citizens. I'd like to have Nate chime in for just a moment about kind of his role and how he will be available for you all. If Nate, you want to share a little bit about what you're going to do with the chat.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jackson. My name is Nate Torres. I'm the city administrator. I've been here since, now I can't remember. June? No, March of last year. Thank you. Much longer than that. Tonight, my role will be to answer questions regarding budget, as so many of our residents have reached out to ask. I will also be facilitating the meeting from the Zoom aspect of it. At this point, everybody has the opportunity to chat with either myself or Mr. Jackson, who's been made a co-host. Should they have questions, again, as we've indicated, we're going to try to compartmentalize to get to those chat type questions after we review the questions that were submitted ahead of time by email. If there is any technical issues that I can help with through chat, please feel free to reach out. Otherwise, I just hope to make this as smooth a meeting as possible for everybody and to follow Mr. Jackson's lead on what he would like to do tonight.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Nate. So we're going to begin our questions with the questions that were submitted ahead of time. There are quite a few of those. Some of the questions are directly related to the chief, and then some are obviously for the mayor as well. We'll give each of them an opportunity to chime in as they choose. So I'll begin with the first question we have on our list. And that question says, how often do officers have mental health checkups? Are they trained to recognize agitation, stress, or burnout within themselves and their fellow officers? What steps does the police department take to help officers have healthy mental health in an ongoing way?
I believe that one will be geared towards myself. For mental health checkups, all new hires do go through the mental evaluations and psych tests to perform the jobs of a law enforcement officer. Once they're on the force of any force in the state of Wisconsin, you can have continuously evaluations. Usually those are through our insurance and EAP, which is employment assistance programs. And we also do anything like self-evaluation and self-evaluations of each other through maybe, let's say, a bad call, where I will call in a crisis team and we'll do a debrief with those officers and give them the resources to make sure that officer wellness is a high priority.
Great, great. Thank you for those answers, Chief. Mayor, do you have anything to add to that at all?
I don't have much to add other than just echoing. We have utilized calling in professionals when there's been a particularly difficult call, and allowed everybody to come in, not just the people that were necessarily specifically at the scene. So to make it available to everybody, because they, what affects one of them affects all of them, and it's just something that we find important and keep on top of.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. We'll move on to our next question that was submitted. And that question says, what protocols are in place to assure that excessive force and racial profiling do not occur within the police force? And what is the follow-up if someone reports a grievance?
The protocols are set by the state of Wisconsin through the Training Bureau, Training and Standards Board. Those are set forth and all officers are trained in that. And regarding the grievance thing, question, those are all brought forth. If you have a concern that is brought up, it comes to the officer or the chief of police. There is either a verbal complaint that can be, just meet with me and tell me your concerns, and or a written complaint that can be brought forth. After that is brought forth, it is then looked into as the grievance, whether it's a fact, what we call as a fact finding, where we utilize body cams, squad cams, talking to the officers, maybe getting more information of what the incident was about. And that could actually include also like a business-owned cameras as well. Once we get the fact finding, is we find that there is merit, then we get an outside agency to do the investigation to complete impartiality. Usually that would be Department of Criminal Investigations out of Madison, a state organization.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that, Chief. So obviously you all can tell that many of the questions submitted are directly related to policing. I'd like to give the mayor an opportunity to kind of let you all know why we're having this particular meeting tonight, what she hopes to get out of it, and then also give the chief an opportunity to tell you all a little bit about why he wanted to participate in this meeting as well. So Mayor, you want to let everyone know why we're here tonight?
Sure, thank you. This meeting came to mind, I would say the day or two after George Floyd was murdered in Minneapolis. There was a protest that was being proposed on May 26th in Viroqua, and I had somebody in the community reach out to me and express concern that maybe they didn't feel safe protesting in our town, and that was a concern. Immediate concern, and I felt like it was necessary if we have anybody in our community, whether they are let us know or are keeping it secret, if they don't feel safe, we want to start the dialogue to figure out how can we be approachable, and what can we do to make ourselves transparent and available to you as a police department, and myself as the mayor being responsible ultimately for what happens at the police department, the oversight of it. So I talked it over with our chief, and as was mentioned, he hasn't been here long enough really outside of COVID world to be able to reach out and meet everybody. And this was really my opportunity to just both be available, transparent, but also allow for you all to meet our chief that we're very fortunate to have. He's very sought after in the state. He could have gone anywhere to work, but we're fortunate to have him here. And that's really just trying to make everybody knowledgeable of where we stand here, and have to not necessarily speculate. So.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Mayor. Chief, would you like to chime in and just kind of let everyone know why you wanted to participate in this meeting and what you hope to get out of it?
Yes. First of all, Mr. Jackson, thank you for that I guess, the initial bio that you did have. But no, mostly is kind of echoing what the mayor just said, is to have a small discussion and actually an open dialogue of what your guys' concerns are. I am here to listen, here to answer your guys' questions. But just to tell you a little bit about myself, I guess to add is outside of, becoming chief of police, literally my first week here, I did actually create a mission statement, vision statement, and core values, which if you guys, during this meeting, you guys want to look at it, it's on our Facebook page and the city website. Those mission statement, vision statement, and core values are my true visions of where I see the Viroqua Police Department going, continuing to grow. So that is what really means a lot to me. It's very important to me. Kind of to say a little bit what Mayor just said, that I am kind of a humble guy. I don't like talking about it, but she kind of did talk about it a little bit, is just so everyone's aware that I am truly excited to bring different community-oriented policing ideas that really worked well for me in my previous agencies. COVID did take a little, I guess, or that took a little backseat to COVID, and understandably. But regarding the master instructor, I am one of the only ones in the state of Wisconsin that is an active law enforcement member that is a master instructor in 3 different tiers. I say that not to, I don't like even saying it, mentioning it, that I am one of the only ones in the whole state. I've been kind of lucky in my ideas and where my visions are, where I believe in training. But I only say that because I want to inform you and rest assured that I am extremely passionate about training and continuing ed. And the only reason I'm one of the few ones is when you teach at a college, most of the ones that have the master degrees are usually retired law enforcement, or they have one special area that they teach in. I'm kind of excited that I've got 3 of them, plus a lot of other ones that I'm not a master instructor. But I only say that just because I'm not just using smoke and mirrors. This is my resume. Family brought me back to Viroqua. That is why I'm here. I am excited about the where we're going to go. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Chief. Would you mind sharing your mission and vision statement that you spoke of earlier?
Yeah. So the Viroqua Police Department's vision is we strive to be dynamic, continuously improving police department devoted to providing the highest level of professional services and making our community a safer and healthier place to live, work, and play. Our mission statement is the members of the Viroqua Police Department are dedicated and committed to serving all members of the community to the best of our ability and to improve the quality of life for all within our community. And our core values, is the fulfillment of making our mission statement succeed, is value diversity, always looking ways to improve ourselves and our services, enforce laws and serve our community with respect and fairness, share responsibility with citizens for improving safety and quality of life, build trust and optimism with the community with a goal of shared success, and operate with the highest standards of integrity, professionalism, compassion, and honesty.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for sharing that, Chief. We appreciate it. I think Nate wanted to kind of talk to you all a little bit about the Zoom settings and the rationale behind the Zoom settings. You want to share that with everyone, Nate?
Yeah. So as most of you know who have attended our meetings before, usually we leave the settings on Zoom to allow folks to mute their mics at their own discretion, allows for a little bit more open conversation, and makes city government more accessible. That works in small numbers when there's maybe 15, 20 people on a call. As you'll note from the participant list, we are now at 164 participants in our meeting, which is an all-time high, and I'm very proud to see. But given that, allowing people to be unmuted just simply doesn't work with numbers of this size. So please don't take it as anything other than a necessity given the dynamics of Zoom. Again, the chat is available folks can use that to alert me to any questions they may have. For those of you who are joining by phone only, there will be an opportunity where when we get a little bit farther into the public comment, that I will unmute your line specifically. And that is just a way for you to be able to speak up and say, hey, I would like to make a public comment later. So we want to make sure that our folks who maybe don't have a computer or smartphone or choosing not to use them do have an opportunity to weigh in here as well. So that's just a little bit about why the settings are the way they are. We do that in hopes of making sure that when those who are speaking, that everybody has a chance to really hear them. So that is it. I think that covers a little bit of why. Oh, and screen sharing, we turn that off, folks, because just becomes a little bit weird when somebody accidentally shares a screen when they weren't ready to. So if there are any things that people would like to give me and possibly share when they make a public comment, you can please send that to my email, which I will shoot down in the chat box for everybody. So thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that, Nate. We're going to proceed with some additional questions. The next set of questions is actually several pieces to it. So I'll read each of those pieces. Are records of complaints, violations, and misconduct by police officers available publicly? If so, where does one go to obtain that information? If not, what can be done to make that information public? What can be done to make those occurrences actionable? How are perpetrators of hate crimes charged in our municipality? What action was taken against the person who drove through the barricades at the culmination of the Juneteenth event on Friday, June 19th?
Thank you. There are a few laws that we have to abide by. Personnel files is kind of one of them. They're very unique. So are they available to the public? No, they are not. If there is concerns that are brought forth, that's why we have a government body, whether it is public safety, our city council, and then ultimately our police and fire commission board, who is consisted of citizens of the area of the city of Viroqua. So those guys or those individuals on those particular boards would be privy to that information, but we cannot just let every buddy that has an open records request ask for personnel files.
Okay.
In regards to the perpetrators of any hate crimes is charged in the municipality, there is state law that there is a hate crime enhancer for certain laws that probably be participated in, whether that was a blanket charge, but it's an enhancer. And those questions would be, I guess, forwarded to our local district attorney's office, whether for charging for. We would recommend a hate charge enhancer. It is up to the district attorney to actually charge it.
Okay.
And I guess the final question regarding the action that was taken place on that date, that individual drove through the barricades of a road closed during a event that was taking place on June 19th. That date is, we were notified that evening. I would say right there is if I can actually say one thing regarding that date is, please, I don't want, if I can take one avenue out of this meeting tonight, is making everyone realize that I have an open door policy. I have transparency. You do not have to worry about, you know, I guess, worried or have fear just talking to me, because this is stuff cannot happen. It is an open investigation right now. I don't want anybody not to fear like they couldn't talk to us and then we wouldn't even know about it. So this current is brought to our attention. It is an open investigation. We do actually know who did it. So it is currently open. So I do want to say that. And I think I answered all your questions.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chief. We'll move on to the next set of questions. How are officers and administration held accountable for implementing training? What is the police department's response to situations where police response was not appropriate or excessive? How is that tracked in terms of police employees? And then how do police remain objective in the community when there are personal relationships? What ethical principles are you held accountable to?
Your first kind of question is how our officers and administrative held accountable is we have actually for being an instructor at the college level, and we have a total amount of hours of 720 hours, which is actually comparable to 18 weeks at the academy. During those 18 weeks, they get a variety of different topics that is set by a training and standards board set by the state of Wisconsin. Those hours are actually one of the highest, if not, I believe last year we were the highest of training hours in the entire country. So initial training is those requirements are set by the state. So we don't have a lot of leniency of adding or taking away any type of training that we want. They're there for a good reason. They're there from a panel of citizens. After they graduate the academy, they set a minimum requirements of certain areas of what we have to annually do and annually receive for trainings. So that is a continuously educational piece and training that every officer in the whole state of Wisconsin will receive. I think your last question regarded ethical training. To be honest, the ethics is an area that is taught annually. Ethics is direct impact on integrity. Once we lose integrity, we have lost everything. So integrity is something that I'm going to push for every officer here. I push for every single recruit that I teach. Any officer that loses integrity should not actually wear the badge, and I will stand by that one wholeheartedly.
Okay. Thank you so much, Chief. Mayor, do you have anything that you'd like to add to the comments that the Chief made?
I would like to say that just before Chief Needfeld was hired, we implemented doing more consistent squad meetings at the police department, where we all come together, including myself and every officer and dispatch, and we talk about not only what's happening, we do feedback with each other, certain cases that might be particularly difficult or troubling, and but we bounce things off, and training is a huge part of the conversation. And since our new chief has arrived, the excitement about training is even more than it used to be, and they're very excited about the fact that Rick does a great job of letting them choose on where they want to excel, and has offered opportunities for many of our officers to become instructors themselves. And I just think that that's important, that we have certainly taken some big steps to foster an environment of, and then I've been in squad meetings where, you know, there was one of the officers had a training on interviewing sexual assault victims. He was able to go to the training, so he came back and during the squad meeting shared the basics of what that meeting held. And so it's a really great opportunity for, you know, we don't have an unlimited budget or amount of hours to be able to send people to all of these, so they definitely share with each other too, and are excited to share what they've learned. And I think that's one thing that's being fostered right now, that we build a much stronger department.
Great. It's nice to see that collaboration between your office and the police department. That's always an important part of having a police department that works really well. So let's move on to some of the other questions. I know this next set, part of what they asked was asked earlier, so we'll skip that first part. Do your senior officers and department heads recognize that stress and agitation are serious issues? What do you do with a stressed out officer? Are they allowed to continue patrolling? And then what is the protocol when one officer is concerned over another officer's behavior?
Yep, thank you. Is regarding the senior officers, department heads recognizing it. Absolutely, when we recognize it, when I recognize it, when my assistant chief Simonson recognizes it, and it's not just on any department head or admin. If any officer comes forth or has any concerns, they're going to bring it up, because it's just not the vision that we want to see, and it's a welfare. We care about each other, and if they're not well, or they have a call that's really bothering them, yes, we're going to push them towards the employee assistance program. get them to talk about it, and it could be with another coworker first to see what the issue may be, if it's just building up. But yes, it's going to be through the employee assistance program. And that's through our insurance. And then after that is, yes, if it is warranted, yes, they're going to be off patrol immediately.
Okay, great, thank you. So the next question actually starts with a few comments. So it says overt and dangerous acts of intimidation such as call rolling and speeding around groups of people engaged in peaceful gatherings are the current manifestations of fear and intimidation tactics in the community. How will the department handle these just below the line behaviors in the community in the context of prevention and setting the tone for our specific community? Is the police department willing to add prevention education about intimidation behaviors and their effect on racial equity in the community to their prevention and outreach programs?
To answer that quickly, yes, yes, and yes. Absolutely are we going to include preventative education towards these tactics for intimidation. That is something where, you know, I can vouch for myself, but I could probably vouch for every one of us in this department is we join this force because we don't like bullies. Intimidation factor has a correlation with that. Regarding that protest with some coal rolling, we like to handle stuff a little bit behind the scenes. A lot of people might not know is during one of the most recent protests, peaceful protests that was on Main Street, we actually were pulling over those individuals because we were sitting on the outskirts of those, whether people knew we were there or not. We were there. We pulled them over as long as it wasn't a safety issue. I mean, one that was brought to our attention really did concern me, kind of more of a safety issue. But the ones that were just rolling coal were pulled over and ticketed.
Okay, great, thank you. Mayor, do you have anything additional you'd like to add in relation to the last set of questions?
Not specifically, no. Just as far as the protest and the intimidation factor. Leading into protests, luckily we have a great community that is more than happy to reach out to us ahead of time and let us know when they're planning a protest. And every time that we hear about an event or a protest or something that's coming up in our community, there's immediately a conversation with myself and the chief about the role. And oftentimes if I'm directly contacted about something, I'll reach out back to the person who contacted me and ask, is there something specific you are expecting or hoping from the police department? And our one peaceful protest where we had some trucks that were being pulled over for justified reasons, that was one of the requests, is that the police not be visibly present. But of course, we always, in support of protesting peacefully in Viroqua, we want to make sure that they're kept safe too. And so that's a conversation that we like to have, and with people who want to have events, of making sure that, you know, we're protecting them the best they can, but also that everybody's comfortable with the role of the police department and their presence.
Great, thank you for adding those thoughts.
Mr.
Looking back to our questions.
Mr. Jackson, can I add one point to that?
Yeah, sure, Chief.
It would be very beneficial, yes, if we do know about that ahead of time, especially like June 19th for Juneteenth. If I'd literally found out about it the day before, if not like within 12 hours, so we just put plastic barricades out. If I do know about this type of event, this is something where I can get Public Works involved and maybe get some concrete barricades to better protect the citizens at a certain event. So if please inform me, because I'll do everything I can to make sure that that does happen.
Okay, great, thank you. Let's get back to our questions. The next question, in light of the fact that even when policies are changed and response tactics such as chokeholds are banned, police officers around the country continue to do these things. How is the Viroqua Police Department different? How can we be certain that police officers in Viroqua can be trusted to respond differently?
Through training. 100% through training, having the best quality employees and officers that the state can provide.
Okay, great, thank you. And I see that there are at least one question that's come through the chat. We will get to those chat questions a little bit later. We want to get through all of the questions that were sent in ahead of time first. So we still have a little ways to go, but we'll get to those. Just be a little patient with us.
Can I add real quickly to that last one? The training is certainly the biggest factor of it, but one other thing that we have certainly fostered in our department is expectations and communication. So, you know, after George Floyd's murder and when everybody had had a chance to see the inappropriate actions of those police officers, we're really fortunate to have a group of officers and also a chief that doesn't mind me just showing up and kind of grilling the guys of what did you think of how that was handled and how do you think you would handle that situation? And we're all very able to have a conversation about our expectations of it. So we certainly want everybody to know that when something like this happens, it's not just kind of ignored and thinking it's somewhere else. We have fostered an environment at the police station where we have very open discussion between all of us on our expectations, and that through those conversations, it's also another form of training and just knowing what my expectations for the behavior of our police officers are, and also, you know, our chief knows what the expectations are as well, and we share them, you know, which is very fortunate. So.
Great, thank you for adding that. The next question is related to the police budget. I would like to hear a breakdown of the police budget and how it corresponds to the overall city budget, as well as a conversation about shifting resources to support other emergency support services like mental health, substance abuse, suicide, and domestic violence prevention.
Sure, I guess I can jump in and take that one here. It's Nate here. I know Karen asked me not to share graphs and get into numbers too heavily, but one of the things that we have here is a quick breakdown of what the city halls, or I'm sorry, the police department's budget is versus the overall budget. Some residents had been interested in seeing this, so I'll just pop this up real quick. Pictures are usually worth 1,000 words. So as you can see here, here is a picture of the fiscal year 2020 budget. At a previous meeting, the police department had been rolled into health and safety, which included things like municipal court and pest control, our contract with the Driftless Humane Society for taking in feral cats and things like that. So this here has been changed to just pull the police department budget out. As you can see here, the police department budget is getting close to $1.1 million annually. And represents 21% of the city's budget. Just a little bit more detail here. Of that 1.086 million, this is how it's broken up in terms of numbers. So police officer, like most organizations, wages and benefits are always going to be the biggest part of a budget. And so you can see here our police officers' wages and benefits and insurance and things like that are going to top a little over, or a little under, I should say, 660,000. Police administration, that covers wages, benefits, health insurance for our chief and assistant chief. Police dispatch, we have, Rick, I believe 2 full-time dispatch and maybe some part-time dispatch?
3 part-time.
3 part-time. So that will cover our dispatch hours, and then police other, as you can see here, includes all these other things, right? The uniforms, the equipment, the supplies, maintenance of the fleet vehicles and things of that nature. And then finally, this little section off the top is the capital budget. So large capital purchases. In 2020, we budgeted for 1 squad car replacement. We actually ended up having to do 2 because one of the vehicles got wrecked in the line of duty. And so this, again, is the budget. I will say that all of the capital expenses go through a very lengthy, as the council will remember, a very lengthy capital improvement planning process, which took no less than 6 months for us to do. Many long discussions about spending on police items versus park and rec versus general city. So yeah, that's just a quick rundown of the budget.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that. Let's go back to our questions. The next question says, can we employ the use of a civilian review board or oversee disciplinary actions for police misconduct?
Mr. Jack, just real quick, I think there was a second part to that last question regarding moving funds to different types of support.
Okay.
I just provided the budget numbers, but I think there was a back half to that last
Oh,
question.
yeah, my mistake.
Yeah.
Chief, if you'd like to address that, Chief, or the mayor?
I'll start since Rick's usually on the forefront. I certainly, Nate's our overall numbers guy. He works with each department head to determine where their budget lies with the city. I don't have the direct involvement in every facet of that, but I do and have had this conversation with our chief many times of how great I would really think it would be if we had more programs in our community that we can't fund through the police department, just based on our municipality is not overly flush in capital. But if we could work together with the county health department and have a mental health crisis intervention team that would be available, that would certainly alleviate a lot. A lot of the police officers, you know, they didn't go to school and are not uniquely equipped, even though they do the best that they can to show up on those calls because they're the ones who are tasked with doing it because they're the first option. It's a lot to ask of our police department to be social workers, mental health crisis workers, all of those things that really add to their call volumes, and they're important. And like I said, they do a fantastic job, in my opinion, of handling that to the best of their ability. But yes, if there is a way to find some funding to support mental health crisis and social work in our community, that would be fantastic. But we're not there yet at this present day.
Great, thank you. Chief, you want to elaborate on that?
Yes. Yeah, I can't say without a doubt in a perfect world, yes, we would have a crisis team that would be able to handle those, you know, especially anything regarding mental illness. Even though we are trained in different de-escalation techniques and mediation, trying to figure out, you know, what we can do to help them and get them, whether it's a safety plan or if they are in emergency detention where they are a harm to themselves or others. If we could have a team that would, in a perfect world, to do that, that would be great. Just for the mere fact of we do have in the city of Viroqua, just because a good chunk of it is because of our hospital. We don't have a lot of you know, local or area municipalities that have a hospital, so we're kind of like the only hospital. Our closest one, I guess, would probably be La Crosse. Outside of that, they would come here. With that being said, is we have an average of 200 calls for possible mental evaluations a year. So that's, you guys might be better than math than me, but that's a little over than half. So every other day we are dealing with it. My first week, my very first week here, we had 5 chapters, legitimate chapters, commitment orders. And then once that happens, they get evaluated by the doctors. And then depends on the age and the sex of the individual, they will be going to different areas. And out of those 5 that first week, 3 of them went to Winnebago, which is over by Oshkosh. 1 went down to Platteville, 2 went to Eau Claire. So that is also drive time. Depends on the sex of the individual. If it is a female and I only have 2 male officers, I have to find an individual that can ride with them, just for fairness. So it is time, it is hours, it is, and then trying to fill the shift of Viroqua. So in a perfect world, I would love to see that.
Great, thank you. And just one more reminder for those of you who are submitting questions in the chat. We still have quite a few of the questions that were submitted ahead of time to go through. So we will get to that, but it's going to take a while. We have quite a few questions to still address. So once again, can we employ the use of a civilian review board to oversee disciplinary actions for police misconduct?
I'll take that one. We do have a police and fire commission in our municipality. And the sole purpose of the police and fire commission is to hire, fire, promote, and demote our police officer, anybody on the police chief all the way down. They are citizen members who are appointed by myself and approved by the council. And then they serve 5-year terms. I do attend those meetings, but I do not vote in those meetings. And so it's important to distinguish that there's a line between my role in oversight. I am not involved in the hiring and firing other than I do sit in on interview process, but it is a citizen board that has the ultimate decision making in those items for our police department.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. The next question is, what is the relationship between the police union and the police department? Under what circumstances does a union get involved?
They will get involved during the contract years, which could be anywhere from 1 year to 3 years. So they are, I guess, negotiating or being a part of the contract between them and the city. And then anybody, when they also request them for any types of disciplinary action.
Okay, great. And we did have a comment that came through chat. Toby Grotz says that we have had direct experience with the police department concerning mental health issues of a family member and found them to be very well trained and considerate. So I wanted to share that comment while we were still close to that particular topic. The next question, so can we, okay, I think we've covered that one. Why has the budget for the new city hall and police department doubled in size?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one. So when we had submitted the original budget for the police department, is back when we were completing the capital improvement plan. At that point, we had used comparables from a neighboring community that just had completed their police department and city hall project back in 2018. The community was comparable in size, but not a lot of additional similarities between that project and the current project exist. Our project is at this point, I plan to go on a 0.7 acre parcel of land directly behind the current city hall because of the challenges with both topography and the limited ability to do a single floor building means that costs rise dramatically, right? So when you're talking about subgrade building and you're talking about second floors, those construction costs go up. A second reason is the fact that I am not an architect. I did not go to school to provide cost opinions. And so when we're doing a CIP, we're making our best educated guess. Once we hired an architect who could provide qualified cost opinions, they made us realize that for our area in this day and age, these are the construction costs. And then I would say the third reason is that we didn't have Rick. We did not have a police chief. Assistant Chief Simonson was filling in for him, but he was playing a lot of double duty at that point. We were absent a chief for a good amount of time. And a lot of that time took place during our capital improvement planning. So once Rick was able to get in the door, he was really able to share with us best practices, requirements. We identified that the current police department, the police station, I should say, is just woefully underprepared to provide the facilities needed for policing in this age, Rick. I think I'm articulating that probably not as well as you could, but we know we need more things in order to do the proper job that requirements of the state and other governing bodies require us to do. So, Rick, I don't know if you want to jump into that regard. I probably butchered it at the end there, and why hear it from you when they can hear it from you?
I guess I would go back to Mr. Jackson. I mean, if that's just the only question about that, then I think we're good. If there's another question regarding our efficient needs at the police department, if that is a question coming up, I would like to address that at some point tonight.
Okay, great. So let's move on. Is the police department part of a union? Who negotiates the contract, and when is it up for renewal?
It is up, the negotiation is with the Wisconsin Professional Police Association, WPPA. They negotiate with our officers and have a contract. Our contract year is actually going to be this year. So it'll be this year.
Okay.
Like I said before, it could be up to 1 or 3 year contracts.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Chief.
And sorry, Rick, I think I missed the part. Did we talk about who negotiates that? Did you speak to that at all?
With WPPA, yeah.
Yeah, so just the fact that is a community decision. That is something that, as an administrator, as a police chief police, we work with the union president on, and then of course any contract that is signed comes back to the council for approval. So it's all vetted through the public. Sorry, I'm playing double duty here, responding to chat messages and trying to listen for what I need to jump in on. So I apologize if I'm disjointed.
No problem, Nate. Thank you for chiming in. Next question is, what is the average annual salary for a police officer?
$54,054.
Okay. And then the next question says, how does ticketing impact budget?
It does not. Not at all.
Okay. Moving on, why is the police department going to be located in the same facility as City Hall? We should consider what impact that has on City Hall interactions. Why is the police facility aimed to be right at the center of downtown? Are we a police city? Is that our focus? I'm not interested in living in Viroqua if we're going to be centering the voices and presence of police in this tiny community.
I will make my first attempt at answering that one. This discussion came to City Council back in January. I know it was January, I don't remember exactly the date. And it was voted. There was plenty of discussion leading up to that vote on where was City Hall, what are the needs, what are the space needs for both City Hall and the police department, what is the availability of location that the city has to put new buildings on. It has been identified in multiple meetings for quite some time now that both City Hall and the police department have some pretty excessive hardships in their buildings, to say the least, and we are not in compliance with some things that are very important, and we don't really have a choice but to fix those things at this point because it's a state requirement. That includes ADA accessibility, that includes open meeting space for the police department, that includes evidence rooms, storage, the municipal court clerk needs some space. So we have brought all of the options to the council, and it did vote, pass council a vote of 7-2 to combine the two spaces. And operationally, in the scope of all of that, it was brought to our attention as well by our county emergency management leader that there was a grant available to include a safe room, which would be kind of a storm shelter for mobile people who live in the mobile home parks, who have upstairs apartment on Main Street. It could also double as a community room and chamber.
Okay, I'm gonna get started.
Eric Snowdale. Eric Snowdale, can you mute, please?
Who is that?
That's Eric Snowdale.
Oh, how did he get through?
I don't know. Okay.
Sorry,
So-
Eric. I didn't mute you somehow, or I unmuted you somehow.
So we,
I thought it was Mr. Jackson. I was like, oh, he's got his.
oh, yeah, let's see. So that's how we came to that. It was quite a few discussions of options, land availability, the space that we have behind City Hall, and to the question of, are we a police city? We certainly want to be a community that does have community policing. And we want the officers to be able to be seen and have interaction with people that is positive and safe. And the vote that was taken, and my own personal feelings, is to kind of stick them off in a corner somewhere of the community is not necessarily going to support the community policing goals that our chief has, our department has, and that the council voted that they wanted to have. And cost-wise, it's just cheaper to build one building. There will be shared spaces by the two of them to be together. I know a lot of people probably don't feel like that's a fair answer to bring up money in this situation, but it is a reality of the finances of the city at this point, and we do have to be mindful of that. So we did get a grant, or we're hoping to hear on the grant for the safe room though, and that will help pay for the cost of the building.
Okay, great. Let's move on.
Mike,
Nick?
or Mr. Jackson, can I add to that?
Yeah, sure, Chief.
I got, because this is one of the areas that I'm extremely passionate about, just because my last agency, I saw of how much of an influence this type of a building would, and my vision would have an effect on the citizens as a whole. Is, without talking about the code violations that the mayor kind of just talked about, is this 100% will have build a relationship between our officers and the community. I would actually like to throw the challenge out to every single person that is listening. If they could actually name every one of our officers, we have 9, so it's not that many, 9 full-time officers, and I would actually throw this out to even the council and the police and fire commission, anybody listening, if they could name all 9. I bet most of them couldn't name more than just a couple, and that is what I want to fix. Having us in the same building, especially as in the community room, I only see a benefit because I saw that with the Boy Scouts visiting my community room, because we were in the same place. They would come over and give me high fives. They got to know every single officer. The council got to, any concerns or even dropping off prescriptions at the city hall. They made an effort to knock on the door or walk right in and got to know me and my old officers. That is what I would love to see here, because I do see that is building a relationship and just, more oversight, building trust, accountability. That is going to have an impact with us being in the same building as City Hall and the community room. And I'm more familiar with the towns north of here, and I just want to make sure, this is a practice that most municipalities do believe. If you literally go from every town from here to Eau Claire, actually outside of Westy, because they had growth issues and they had a fire department that built a new fire department. So the police department moved into the old fire station. Outside of Westy, the next 15 towns north, all the way north, have a city hall with a police department. 14 out of 15. This is the practice that is not unique. This is just this side of the state. I bet if I asked Mr. Jackson on his side of the state that I'm not familiar, this is a cost saving, but it is a benefit to the community. And I am very, like I said, I'm very passionate about that. Just for, the privacy issues that we had literally on Friday, we first of all need to be in a different room, and this will be my kind of last point with the privacy issues and making sure everybody does feel safe, is we actually had an individual, actually a council person, come to the police department and talk about a complaint regarding that incident regarding June 19th. In one of my other interview rooms, I got a confession from a sexual assault of a minor. And he was arrested, went to jail. At that same time, we were being informed in the other interview room, which is not actually a true interview room, but she had the opportunity to address her concerns. And then the second one is we actually had somebody at the window registering DMV issues. And then we had another one with juvenile drug related concerns from her mom. And we actually had to interview them in front of a fire truck because we ran out of room. And she was extremely worried that, you know, she was going to be seen by everybody. And we have all these people coming in and out of, you know, our police department, and every one of those has a privacy issue of where we have to make sure everybody feels safe talking about, especially regarding that sexual assault of a child. We have to give the resources to the public to make sure that we are doing everything that we can to make them feel safe. And that could be just as simple as talking to us, not knowing, you know, that they are part of it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Chief. And I can say that I know several of the suburban communities in Milwaukee. The police department and City Hall do share a building in several of those communities I'm aware of. So, you know, this isn't something that's out of the ordinary, as you said. So let's move on. The next response says, I would like to see the role of the police in this city change from one that is mostly invisible and beyond the reach of the common citizen to one that is integrated in the community and transparent. Police on bikes and walking, visiting local business owners, more community dialogues, the names, faces, and residency of each of our police officers available on the city website. And there was a comment that came in related to this as well from Edna Schneck, who said, I would prefer officers come to my neighborhood on foot and meet me here. So if you'd like to address that, Chief.
Outside of COVID, that is 100% of the reasons that I can't push community-oriented policing hard enough. I've had success in a lot of programs, and a lot of those programs actually went statewide just through my connections through the Chiefs Association, telling them about my ideas. And one of those that I am probably the biggest passionate about is as simple as contacting local businesses, usually the ones that sell ice cream. Is like in this area would be McDonald's, Culver's, and Dairy Queen. Ask them for coupons for a free ice cream cone or a small blizzard, and we hand those out to kids wearing bike helmets. It's as simple as some program like that you see a direct impact of watching these kids smile. And to be honest with you, you see so many kids waving at squads that they will fall off their bikes in excitement. That will make an officer's day. And that kid will grow up not fearing us, being excited to see us, trusting us. And those type of programs is something that is going to happen here. I just wish COVID didn't happen because it would be already actually here. But outside of COVID, I can't reassure you that there'll be bike patrol, foot patrols, us meeting around. Literally my first, I think, month here. We did the conversations at the library. I'm going to make myself available. I'm going to make all my officers available. And I would reach out to you guys if you guys have any ideas that you guys will see or want to see here. I've got a whole bunch of ideas that will benefit Viroqua.
Okay, great. Mayor, do you have anything you'd like to add to the remarks the Chief made?
I would like to say that the idea or the I can't remember exactly how it was worded at the beginning of the statement of the police officers being invisible. I think that that's probably the opposite of what we would consider community policing. The one thing that our officers really, that they started doing last summer and really enjoyed doing is walking through like the Pride event that was hosted here in Viroqua, the night market, and just being visible as community members and not always showing up when things are bad or when there's something wrong or having to show up in what people would consider the bad guy. I don't think that our police officers being invisible is really what I hope for our community policing. I want them to be visible in a positive way. And I think that's been expressed on Facebook too, of, if the police officers are doing their job, then we won't need them. Well, if you don't know who they are and they're not being able to reach out and be a positive influence on the community, I don't think we're going to get to that point where people are going to want to have those conversations.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Pierre. These next few are actually kind of related. So I'll read all of these and then I'll ask for a response. So what is the police department doing to proactively build relationships and listen to the community? More specifically, what is being done to reach out to persons of color in the community and to reassure them that they will be treated with fairness and respect? Are there opportunities for people of color to share concerns, i.e. open door policy? And more specifically, what is the police department doing to help our immigrant community members feel safe and welcomed?
I would say your first question is absolutely, we have an open door policy, and I would encourage everybody, not anybody, just people of color, but everybody in Viroqua to stop by, get to know our policies, our procedures, but more importantly, our officers. So I would 100%, can't push it hard enough, that we do have an open door policy, and I would encourage that of everybody. You'll have to repeat your kind of other question. I mean,
Okay. It said more specifically, what is being done to reach out to persons of color in the community and to reassure them that they will be treated with fairness and respect? Are there opportunities for people of color to share concerns? And then what is the police department doing to help immigrant community members feel safe and welcomed?
we're going to treat everybody with respect and fairness. And I would just say, just through our community relations and building that trust is how I would kind of answer that. Is once COVID, and once we're able to, be more out there and, do more foot patrols and getting to know everybody, I would encourage us to, invite us, because we did a lot of even parades during COVID, and we're able to talk to a lot of people. But I would just encourage you just to have an open door policy and have a feeling that, you want us there and you want to build that relationship. So just to encourage you guys to have, the mindset that you're willing to, want us there. But yeah, just community relations, I think, is how I would answer that. Once you get to know us, you're going to love us.
Okay. And I know the questions were related directly to persons of color. And I think the person was concerned about whether or not there is very specific things being done to reach out to that community. Are there very specific things that you've done or plan to do related to that community specifically, Chief?
No, not at this time, but I can only do it with, again, saying open door. If you have concerns that especially if I don't know about it, if there's something that does concern anybody, especially people of color, please let us know, or let me know. And whether it's just having some sort of meet and greet, or just answer their questions. That's where I would push it.
Okay, open communication is always the key there. So let's move on.
Richie, can I add to that?
Oh, sure.
Because this is something that was brought up to me recently as well, and I just want to address that. I received an email from somebody that was asking me about telling people of color in this community that they should talk to the chief if they have a question regarding the police department. And that could be construed as not being sensitive to maybe the fears of people of color in this community. And the one thing that I responded with, and just want to make sure that everybody knows, is that myself and the chief have talked about that being a very real possibility. If anybody's not comfortable reaching out directly to the chief because of their concerns about the police department, my contact information is always out there as well. And we have had people reach out to us, and we've been able to make appointments. If you want me to join you to have a conversation with the police, and you don't have to go to the police station to have it, we will meet you where you feel safe to answer any questions. We're not here to say that people of color or immigrants in this community, that it is solely your responsibility to be the ones doing the work to reach out to us. But we also want to make sure that, you know that if we don't know that you have a concern, we can't facilitate helping you reach through that concern. And so, again, I am as much available as our chief, and we will work together to make sure that you are heard in a way that you feel comfortable. And it's not an expectation that we're putting the work on you to make yourselves feel comfortable. That's what we're here for.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that. Let's move on. Is the police department interested in engaging with other community organizations to develop processes that result in less use of lethal force? If a Viroqua group organized a de-escalation training for the community, would the police department participate?
Yeah, I mean, yes, we would absolutely look at it, because any training is good training. 100% any training is good training. So if anyone wants to facilitate and organize a de-escalation kind of a training held here at the city of Viroqua, I would be open up or open it to open arms of that type of training. In regards to the question about the community, is yes, I mean, we have different programs and different relationships with different businesses in town. I don't know if that was more geared towards schools, Mr. Jackson, or were that kind of question with the engagement of the community, if it's just with the businesses. But again, I'll just go back to say, it goes, you guys give me some time, you guys will see the changes that the Viroqua Police Department is going to do with those type of relationships. Just because of the 6 months that I was here, it was very, very difficult to do it during COVID. So that, to your first question, that will happen. I promise you that will happen.
Okay, thank you so much. So let's move on. We still have quite a few of the questions that were submitted ahead of time to get through, and we will get to the chat questions. So let's continue with this. This is a suggestion someone made. I suggested each council person have a block party, a meet and greet, a ward picnic, or some other named event on a yearly basis, probably in the summer, for the citizens of his or her district. This would engender greater participation in city affairs and government and improve communications. So that was just a comment. So a question following that is the police department willing to add prevention education about intimidation behaviors and their effect on racial equity in the community to their prevention and outreach programs?
Absolutely.
Chief, this is Nate here. I just wanted to add some context to that one. I believe that question was written in terms of not necessarily intimidation by police officers, but intimidation of other community members towards minorities within the community. I believe that's how it was written. So just to add clarification.
Second page.
Okay.
Rick?
Yeah.
Sorry. I just clarified the question for you regarding any outreach or prevention you would do to reduce, I believe the question was, any prevention or outreach programs that you could think of that would help reduce the amount of intimidation or hostility that certain segments of the population show towards minority sections of the population.
I mean, top of my head, and I can't really think of any other programs. I mean, this would be maybe something that we could bring forth and have an open door discussion regarding different citizens of here, where you guys bring other ideas. I can research that. But through training, yeah, we don't have any hostile groups or groups, I mean, I would just be open to any discussion, and we have a civilian panel, and we try to figure out that question.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on. The next question says, does the community have a say in what is being policed, and what is the process for input?
What was that last word, Mr. Jackson?
Yeah, what is the process for input?
your process for input would be coming to our public safety meetings, coming to our city hall or city council meetings, having your voices be heard during open forum, any public hearings that are occurring.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that, Chief. The next question says, what kind of background checks are done on officers to know of any history of excessive use of force, racism, or affiliations? And is that public information?
Is the background public information? No, because it's personnel issues. For background checks, we do very intensive background checks in our hiring processes, which would include criminal history checks, their driving records, their credit score, their education, and then also just their, actually I haven't done it here yet, but what I did before is I make them sit with me in my office, whether it's the last candidate or the two candidates, and they sit with me and I literally, all right, log into your social media. I am going to see all your social media, whether it's Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, and that's where you get to find a lot about somebody. So those type of background checks is after they authorization of release is we do those very extensive background checks.
Okay. And I think the question wanted to address officers who maybe have served in a different community and looking at their records from that previous community, records of excessive use of force, racism, and maybe affiliations that may be part of their record from their previous job.
Yep, same thing would go if they were a brand new officer or a seasoned officer with a different agency. If I hire an individual from the city of Milwaukee, I will literally do the same background check. The only thing is you're also going to be talking to their employers, whether they have a law enforcement, past law enforcement employer. You're going to talk to their family members. You're going to talk to their neighbors. You're really going to get to know these individuals because we are putting resources and time and money into this officer. And in what one of my quotes that I've always used is, I can teach anybody to be a cop. I really can, but I can't teach character. And in order to find good character, I have to do that through an extensive background check. So that would literally be if I would hire somebody and he's the best candidate out of Milwaukee, I would be probably sending myself. If not, I would be sending maybe another representative, whether it's a civilian or my assistant chief. We're going to go down there and we're going to do an extensive background check on this individual. Like I said, from employers and not just their management or their supervisor. It's going to be their coworkers as well. But then also neighbors, friends, boyfriends, girlfriends, those type of relationships, because like I said, this is a extreme importance decision and we don't take that part lightly.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Let's see. The next question says, can we insist that our officers are residents of the city that they patrol?
Can we insist on that?
Uh-huh.
I don't, it's not part of our ordinances and I don't believe that it's legal for us to do that. Nate, you're shaking your head.
Right. So this came up when we were actually hiring the chief, and state statutes came out fairly recently within the last few years that basically says that it is illegal to require somebody to have residency within your community. It applies to the city administrator. What the statutes do allow is that for emergency responders, public safety personnel, to have them live within a certain radius or within a certain distance of the city so that they can, they would be able to legitimately respond should they need to be called up for some sort of emergency. So within the city, no, you can't require residency, but for police officers within a certain 15-mile radius, yes.
Yeah, I know here in Milwaukee, that was a point of contention several years ago when that state law changed. You know, all of the police officers and firefighters used to be required to live within the city. And since that law took place, we've had a lot of our police officers and firefighters that have actually moved out of the city of Milwaukee. I believe somewhere in the neighborhood of 55% of police officers for the city of Milwaukee don't live in the city any longer. So there's still some people that are not very happy about that, but it's state law. And I think that's something that needs to be taken up with, our legislature in Madison, if people think that that's something that needs to change. And then we want to ask this question: what are the department's hiring practices and process?
Kind of with the background check, you have all kind of heard how extensive that background check can be. Is the hiring process is just the same. I don't know, I kind of know how it was when I got hired, but what it's going to be for continuously throughout my tenure here is they first have to go through the police academy, which is, as I mentioned before, 720 hours, 18 weeks. They also have to have 60 college credits just to make them eligible to be a law enforcement officer. So those are the requirements that they have to do at the beginning. Once we open up a position, they apply. So once you get the application and the resume, then we're going to get in all those applications. There is a selection process that will happen, whether it's through our kind of our HR and or myself. For example, if we get 50 applicants, we might narrow it down to 20, just for the people that are qualified or any errors in their application. We're going to just do a selection process with the top candidates. Once we get the top candidates, we're going to have a written test. Once the written test, we get the results back, we'll take the written test and we'll go through a peer review. And the peer review is going to be with members of our department, maybe including one or two other individuals. Once we can narrow it down to, let's say, 5 or 6, then it goes to the Police and Fire Commission for formal interviews. The formal interviews, they will go through the panel, go through their recommendations, and then you also would have an administrative review, which would be myself and probably the assistant chief, whether it is through something that we know about them, and kind of just see where our suggestion would lie. And then after that, it would be the background check. So the Police and Fire Commission would have the say and recommendation to the public safety, which would then have the recommendation to the city council.
Okay, great. Mayor, do you have anything additional to add to that?
No, it's in my few hirings since I've been elected, it's been a pretty very thorough process for our chief, obviously, but then recently, our most recent hire for the police department, I was very impressed with the level of questioning and digging and input that our chief put into for that position.
Okay, great. Looks like we have one additional question that was submitted ahead of time, and then we'll jump right into our chat questions next. So this one says, how are incident reports broken down? Database of citations and laws being broken, traffic stops, interventions at the school.
If these are all at the school, they're all incident-based reporting. So we sort them by the nature of the offense. So if it's drug-related, it'll go under a drug-related incident. If it is a fight, if it is a truancy, if it is troubled with party, if it is maybe a child custody issue at the school, it gets categorized by the nature of the offense, with the school being the address.
Okay, great, thank you. So now we're going to go to some of the questions that came through, questions as well as comments that came through chat. And I'll start by reading the first one on our list here. And this is a comment. I think they're looking for a response to it. Training for making sure that all citizens are treated equally and fairly doesn't answer the question about implicit bias and racism of individuals. Please ask a question about how the police force deals with these more hidden aspects of law enforcement. The blue line is real, and so is marginalizing complaints from coworkers.
Implicit bias is very hard to recognize someone's thoughts. With that being said, if the thoughts turn into your racial behavior, that is something when we can address that. So to really kind of say that, it's very hard to, even with the extensive hiring process and background check, just the implicit bias is going to be extremely difficult for anybody, not just in law enforcement, for any profession, any manager, any leader, to recognize someone's thoughts until they turn into a behavior.
Okay. Thank you. Mayor, do you have anything additional to add to that at all?
I would just like again to say that this is a topic that we discuss at the police station. When I stop in, I'm not afraid to ask somebody how they feel about a particular subject that may have come up in the news, or just something that I read, or the training that I was able to take with your organization, Mr. Jackson, last fall, that brought up a lot of things to me that I didn't realize, the bias and racist tendencies that I had to recognize in myself. And so that's been a really big learning curve for me to recognize that. And it's encouraging that even though they're not fun conversations, when the guys see me come in and I'm ready to ask them questions, they're always open. And we have some really good conversation about that. And like Rick said, until we recognize it, we can't address it. And there has been conversations where I have said, I really think what you're saying makes you sound very racist, and let's talk about that, you know. And it's, do I think that that person necessarily would act on those racist, what I was feeling and hearing as racist? No, but that's also what I have learned to address in myself. And I just think that having those conversations with our police officers, it's been really important. And I know that's not something that we tolerate. The jokes or the Facebook posts or anything like that, we do address it right away.
Okay. All right, thank you. So we're going to move on to our next chat question. And this says, I would like to ask the chief if he can explain his understanding of institutional racism and its impacts on Blacks, Indigenous, and other people of color. What specific action steps are being taken to educate himself and other police officers?
Through training, through just us having, like the mayor just said, the dialogue to making sure everybody can have their questions or concerns brought forth. But regarding your systematic racism, I can say with 100% certainty that does not exist in the Viroqua as it is stated as, you know, being the normal practice within society. So I can say that even in my short tenure, but to reassure the ideas that the mayor literally just had, that's just having this town hall meeting, listening to your guys' concerns, bringing anything up front.
Okay. You know, one of the things that my firm, Nurturing Diversity Partners, we teach about these things is that in many respects, all of us as Americans are really not very learned when it comes to American history. We aren't taught in our schools these types of histories that will allow us to see institutional and systemic racism very clearly. And it takes a great deal of effort on the part of individuals and organizations to kind of learn that background and that history, to kind of contextualize things and understand them quite clearly. These are some of the questions that have come to me in recent weeks from a variety of different individuals and organizations around the state about, you know, how can we inform people more about these types of things. And as I said, it isn't something that's very commonly taught. It has to be very intentionally taught. And it's an ongoing effort to learn those things by individuals and organizations. So the next chat question comes in, says, are social media posts of Viroqua police officers monitored? Are there discussions about extremist groups that may be present in police forces in this region?
Are they enforced and are they monitored? Absolutely. It might not be as quick as some people might think, just because we are busy. I don't sit on social media. I may look young, but I'm not that young. But I don't sit on social media. I don't look at my officers, I guess, their Facebook pages, their social media on a regular basis. However, we do look at them. We do. I very much am concerned of what they're putting on, but we are also talk about that during social media in regards to our squad meetings. Since COVID kind of opened it up and the stay-at-home order was lifted, we started having our squad meetings again. So we've had, I think, 2 or maybe even 3 already. I think 2. And that was literally one of the first things I talked about is being careful and watching your social media.
Okay. And the second part of that was, are there discussions about extremist groups that may be present in police forces in this region, Chief?
I mean, yes, we do have those discussions, whether it is through trainings and different ones of setting it up for different sovereign citizens. So we do have these type of trainings that we do attend. My goal is to have these more available. And that's actually another thing. I don't want to keep bringing up COVID, but when COVID actually happened, a lot of those trainings also got postponed since my short tenure. So once those trainings are starting to come more available, or at least getting them on webinar, those are trainings that I cannot say are utmost of importance for all officers, not even just for here for Viroqua.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Let's move on. The next question says, how can the police department do things differently so that people of color feel safe and supported?
I think that kind of goes back to a few questions that we've kind of talked about right there, is if the feeling supportive is just having these dialogues and making sure that we know their concerns and making sure that, that we can do different things for different outreaches, whether it is like the mayor suggested is getting to at least start knowing me, getting to know, the different officers, but those outreach programs, and as simple as maybe National Night Out, is getting to know the officers in a capacity, that they feel comfortable. I hope that answers the question. I mean, I will do my best, but I mean, it's definitely going to be, I don't want to say a two-way street, but I need to, to assist, because whether it is through a program or somewhere that we can do whatever I can do to assist that, so that eliminates that concern, we're going to do that.
Okay, great. Mayor, did you have anything to add to what the Chief just shared?
I just want to offer the support of, the Chief and I are a team, and we communicate well, and we communicate almost on a daily basis. And if anybody in the community, I think it's hard for people to trust in this day and age inherently, people that we don't know, and not everybody knows me either. But if you feel more comfortable reaching out to me and having me be the go-between if you have a concern as a person of color in this community, I can only imagine, because it's not my experience, what it is to be a person of color in this community. But like we said at the beginning, that is why this meeting was created, because we don't ever want to hear that somebody in this community does not feel safe or comfortable, or like they can trust any of us in leadership. And that, if I can be of assistance to be the go-between or to assist you in communicating until people have been able to establish a relationship, then that's also, I'm 100% available for that.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that. Our next question says, and this is pretty lengthy, as a mental health counselor in training, I am hearing what seems to be an impossible quandary. The police department is saying they did not go to school to be mental health responders. I'm also hearing them say that mental health concerns are a large part of their calls. So if time spent in reality on the job deals with mental health and officers are not trained or desiring to take on this work, at what point will the police department be willing to shift funding to social services, mental health supports, taking on the part of their job that they are not wishing to do and are not trained to do?
I would like to say that we did not say that they weren't trained to address these issues. When I said that they didn't go to school for that, it was they didn't go to school to be specifically a mental health professional. They do get training, as Rick pointed out, on how to be the first responders to those kind of calls. And having had recently a number of conversations with our police officers on how they feel about responding to calls and what they feel we need most to be supported in being able to be the best first responders for this that they can. To say that they don't want to be there and help somebody who might be considering killing themselves or harming themselves or somebody else in some way is absolutely not accurate. They want to. To move funding, you know, I would say that if we had the resources and the people, the actual crisis team in our community that was available, we would be spending less money on the police department, because the amount, like they said, the amount of overtime and resources that have to go into, sometimes these calls can end up being over 12 hours. Well, at the end of an officer's shift, if he's one of with these patients or one of these people in crisis, and they're still at the hospital and they haven't been seen, and now they have to drive 4 hours away to take them to a facility, that's all overtime, that's all resources, that's all, you know, if we had the support from other programs, from the county health department or whoever, you know, was able to bring that in, that alone would cut a fair amount of money that we're spending on resources for that.
Okay, thank you for that.
The only thing I would add is 100% we are trained at the academy level, at the continuing ed. This is one of those areas that is talked about at the Chiefs Conference that is held twice a year. This is probably one of the biggest concerns that we are pushing for as a organization through the Badger Sheriff's Association and the Wisconsin Chiefs Association, of the ideas of having, you know, the mental ill, funding for this. However, we are 100% trained in this through crisis interventions and, like I said, continuing education in this area, because we are the ones that are kind of the first responders for these type of situations. And the guys are doing an amazing job in that. But to your, I guess, initial question, I would put it back on that you guys, because I actually had the assistant chief before I got here testify in front of Congress at Madison of showing the needs of whether it is different institutions, social workers, different avenues and treatments for this, for not just of law enforcement, but for hospitals and volunteer. We need this in the state of Wisconsin, 100%. So I would just push it right back as call your congressman, because we have to change something, because this is something that, yeah, we don't want across the board to have on our table. However, we are trained to help with it.
Okay, great. Thank you both for that. The next is actually a couple that are from the same person, and I think they're kind of related to the same topic. And they say, I'd like to ask both the mayor and chief would respond to the idea that police are a part of a toxic system that cannot be remedied by reform. I know they want police to be part of the community, but the police hold a specific place in society and a specific power that is not fixed by knowing their names. Also, is there any move to disarm the officers? Are guns necessary in their position? If they think so, why do they feel this way? And I am personally most unsettled by the fact that they are armed, which may be a state level expectation.
Mayor, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I'll let you handle the armed part because that's obviously what their equipment is. I think on that note, though, I think many people would probably be surprised at how many calls they have. Where it could, they don't use them. They don't, no one's been shot. No one's deadly force has not been used, but there have been situations where, they are still police officers and we do still have serious violent calls that happen in this community. I think the expectation of them showing up unarmed to a potentially deadly situation is somewhat putting more people at harm than good. Mr. Jackson, if you could read the first part of that question again on.
Oh, sure. Let me go back up to it. It says, I'd like to ask both the mayor and chief would respond to the idea that police are a part of a toxic system that cannot be remedied by reform. I know they want police to be part of the community, but the police hold a specific place in society and a specific power that is not fixed by knowing their names.
I do absolutely believe that there are issues in police departments across the country where there are some toxic behaviors, beliefs, issues that certainly need to be addressed. And I will not ever sit here and say that our department is perfect and that we have, excuse me, nothing that we might need to address here. I don't think anybody is suggesting that our department, and I'll say this too, I can only be responsible for our department here in Viroqua. Even as close as our sheriff's office is, we are completely separate entities. And my obligation is to make sure that the city of Viroqua's police department is operating to the best of our abilities. I'm never gonna say that we don't have place in the conversation about the role of police departments in this community and in this state or the nation. Do I feel like we have the breadth of issues that some places do? No, I don't. I do feel like to say that any of our issues can't be fixed or resolved is just shutting ourselves off to improvement or learning. This is a process. Even this meeting is a first step and a process. And until we can address the possible toxicity in our own communities and our own police department, then we're not going to get anywhere. But I guess I don't subscribe to the thought that by knowing our police department and knowing our police officers is not a first step or not a pathway to fixing our department. I think it's a picture. It's a piece of the entire picture that we all need to work towards and have this dialogue, because that's what this is for.
Okay. Chief, would you like to respond to that at all?
Yes, Mayor did a great job explaining that. I'll explain kind of more the firearms side of it. The sad world is people have guns. A lot of bad people have guns. A lot of bad people want to have hurt other people. That is the harsh reality of that. Whether that is an active shooter at a school, at a church, at a synagogue, wherever the case is, there are evil people out there. And we have to protect ourselves, but more importantly, we have to protect the community with that. And if those individuals want to have harm, we have to be ready. And that's where we have extensive training in that. It's actually the most extensive training in the academy. It's also the most extensive academy or training that we receive once we all become officers is going to the range and actually using our weapons, knowing how to use it. But actually more of that training is using de-escalation and figuring out the use of force continuum, is finding out of the process of having those type of training, whether it's not just throwing Like we used to always say it, throwing lead down range. No, that's not what we're doing. Most of the firearms training is trying to figure out the use of force side of it. But the sad thing is yes, there are bad people in this world, and we have to protect it. That's what our U.S. Constitution advises.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. I know that we're creeping up on 8 o'clock pretty soon. Nate, would you like to kind of tell everyone how the rest of the evening is going to play out?
Sure. So, Mr. Jackson, I also have a whole bevy of questions that have come in through chat. I also have a few questions that I think we missed that were submitted ahead of time that I'd like to go back and touch on, if that's okay. And then we really do want to make sure that folks who have been sitting, listening in on the calls have an opportunity to unmute their lines and chime in. What I will say is there's just so many questions coming in, and I think that's absolutely wonderful. People are very curious, they're inquisitive, they're making comments. And there's 144 folks with us today, and so the reality is we might not be able to get everything today, but I want to make sure that everybody knows that all their comments, without their names, without the identifying information, have been pulled from chat and will be kept and reviewed and looked at and absorbed for future. So I just want to make that disclaimer because I don't want anybody to feel like that they've been writing to me and that nobody's been listening. I truly have. That being said, if it's okay, Mr. Jackson, I'd like to jump in and just cover a couple items that I think we missed. And you did a great job trying to hit all the stuff sent in ahead of time, but there was a couple things regarding more of the equipment and use of force. Those items were, does the Viroqua Police Department have tear gas, rubber bullets, percussion grenades, any non-lethal weapons? When would they use them? There's also other conversations about the access to military-style vehicles. I believe the term is MRAP. Is that right? Mine-resistant, something. Sorry, I don't have the acronym in front of me. What is the decision-making process for using some of this type of equipment? Would some of that equipment be used on civilians peacefully protesting? All these are kind of related towards the use of things above and beyond your sidearms, Chief. I don't know if you can speak to that at all.
Nate, just make sure I hit them all.
Sure.
In the peaceful protest, using it on them, absolutely not. In no fashion of that. That will never happen. Regarding the tear gas, rubber bullets, no, we do not have any of that type of equipment at the city of Viroqua. Less lethal, the only less lethal that we are considered through the state would be our tasers is considered a less lethal intermediate weapon. So the taser is our only less lethal tool or a piece of equipment that we have. And in regards to the military equipment, that we also do not have any of that equipment. The Sheriff's Department does have some of that equipment. And I will just reassure that that equipment is used in many different fashions. I cannot speak on behalf of the Sheriff's Department or Sheriff Spears. However, I will inform everybody that being a born and raised individual from Coon Valley, is that MRAP was literally used less than, well, it had been August of 2018 to get people out of second-story windows during our flood. That vehicle and actually a front-end loader, we're our fire department, we're taking people out of that second-story window to safety, to a local boat. That type of equipment is used for all different types of scenarios, but the Viroqua Police Department does not have that equipment.
Okay.
The last question as part of that is if you can share any data or information regarding how often police officers in Viroqua have used their sidearms in the line of duty.
Never. We have never, Viroqua PD has never had an officer involved shooting, period.
Just looking through here in terms of other chat, there was all sorts of stuff, and I'm on what am I on now? Three full pages of chat questions. So again, some of them have been duplicated and addressed to both me and Mr. Jackson. So I'm going to try to process through them. Principles and processes of restorative justice being utilized currently in our community. What other opportunity to utilize them might there be? I think this is also a broader question regarding different types of practices, whether it be, I know there's been a lot of questions regarding de-escalation, conflict resolution, things of that nature. I know restorative justice is different than that in many ways, but I don't know if you want to talk to any of those types of strategies within your department.
In regards to, I mean, that's just, again, I mean, that's through our training, that's through our conflict resolution kind of model, that is through our discretion and community service. But those programs might be more like drug court. I think that's where your question could be, is just other alternatives that we can kind of use as tools, is whether it is maybe a community service type of I mean, I don't want to say alternative, but I'll say alternative, is it's just a different program that we can use.
Awesome. Thank you, Rick. Any thoughts about cyberbullying? Cyberbullying seems to be, it says here, a serious issue in a small town. I'm curious what the message the chief and the mayor would like to give to the community regarding cyberbullying and intimidation, and how you guys typically try to handle those types of complaints or calls.
Yep, cyberbullying is 100% a real thing for everybody else that is listening. It is very real. I can say for experience, those are your hardest calls because of dealing with, we actually had a lot of juveniles, young adolescents commit suicide in my last municipality for cyberbullying. I created a ordinance that was there. I created kind of a liability and making sure to use it as a program to make sure the parents are also aware of what their child is doing. I can say that was one of the first things I looked up while I came to Viroqua, is the Viroqua actually already, which is actually rare from my experiences with talking to other chiefs, Viroqua already actually has an ordinance regarding cyberbullying. So that would be one, is just to use the ordinance and then inform, you know, the parents, the child, that it doesn't limit, there's consequences to cyberbullying.
Awesome. Let's see. Holy smokes, I'm trying to figure out what we've talked about, what we haven't. We've talked about mental health. We've talked about funding to other organizations. Is there any racial diversity on the Fire and Police Commission? That was a question. There was also a question about what type of diversity do we currently have on our within our police department as well?
On the Police and Fire Commission, we do not have any people of color, any minorities on the Police and Fire Commission at this time. As terms are expired, I do reach out to people, excuse me, and I have, you know, asked for input. The Police and Fire Commission is a human resources commission. They do hire, fire, promote, and demote, as I said, and so I do look for folks with that type of experience or want to be involved. And I'd have to say that's one thing on all committees and commissions. I've even gone to social media and said, I need to fill commissions. If you want to be involved, please let me know. And I've got to have more than 2 people ever reach out. And so if there are anybody in this community that wants to have a role on a commission, including police and fire, by all means, I would love to have a conversation about where you would fit best in that scenario. But we can't, you know, I can't drag people there. If I ask for people wanting to be there and nobody wants to be there, and I can tell you, public office, I can understand questioning why you would want to be there, but you know, it's not at all because we wouldn't welcome it.
In regards to your question, Nate, is, I mean, it's not racial within the agency, we do have 4 females that currently work for the Viroqua Police Department, and then 1 minority out of the 9 officers. So 4 females, and then out of the 9 full-time officers, 1 minority.
Okay. There's some conversation in here about City Hall, things regarding, people wanted to point out that there was multiple entrances to City Hall. There was one comment that said something to the fact of, I think the issue of race and experience of police needs to shift to the mayor and the police responding to the concerns of our person of colors in our community. Otherwise, it's not going to feel safe to have them together within the same building. Somebody said, all lives matter does not trump Black Lives Matter. It takes a special effort to bridge the divide. So a comment there. What vulnerabilities in respect to toxicities has the chief identified within police culture as a whole within his long career? So I guess this is more of a general question about what you've seen in departments in terms of toxicities and kind of what advice you would give to all police in the U.S. regarding these vulnerabilities in an attempt to build a stronger community. So that's a really solid question for you, Chief.
Regarding that, is it's 100% not, I mean, I can only speak for myself and my experiences. It is 100% without certainty not tolerated. We, even prior to my arrival here as one of our, I guess, part-time officers, before we even hired them, they didn't even make it through, was brought forth that they might have had some bias, some questions, and it was 0 tolerated. They did not get hired, and they are actually they're not hired at any agency, just for our training and standards of how we talk to each other and do background checks. But with that question, it is 100% without certainty is not tolerated.
Okay, great. There's additional qualifications. Sorry, I'm just trying to read through what we've talked about. I think one of the questions was about future community events that could happen between organizations such as the police department, the Temple Theater, the Youth Initiative High School, McIntosh Memorial Library, the local public schools, to promote connection between polarized groups. Any thoughts on working with community partners on furthering engagement with the public?
That would just be up to the community as a whole, whether they actually would like us there or not, whether it is at different schools, at different events. I would be open to every single chance, whether like during the COVID, as being a part of graduation and being part of a parade and making a day special during the situation that we are going through as a country, is trying to make a little bit excitement in somebody, whether even a birthday party and having that. In regards to community events, no, that's actually one of the things I told the city council and the police and fire commission when I got hired. That is, I can't say it enough, that is one of my true passions, is building this bridge. And you guys get to see is actually, that was the hardest decision of me actually even taking this job, is me taking this job was leaving all those people at my last municipality and watching the kids and everybody saying bye, going to the schools and getting 500 high fives means that's what it's all about. That's why I did this. So doing those type of community events, I would be open to every single one of them. So I guess in a nutshell, I'd just be asking what you guys would like, where you guys would want us. We would always be entertain the idea of being there for you.
Okay, there are, most of the questions are kind of related Somebody wanted you to speak to the relationship between the public school and the police department, but I guess I'll turn it back to Mr. Jackson. We're at about 7 after 8. I think I don't know if you want to shift to having people share voices at this point. Would you like me to continue with chat?
Well, I see that there are several more questions that have come through the chat to me that I'd like to kind of go over. One of those you just mentioned, please outline the relationship between the police force and the public school.
Right now, we do not have a SRO, which is a school resource officer. So our, I guess, relationship with them is whenever they call and need a time for service, we will go there, and it could be a range of different topics. Like I mentioned before, it could be truancy, it could be an active fight, it could be drug related. So it's going to be what they are at their exposure, what they would like us to do.
Okay, great. There's another, here's a comment that came through about the training that you have, that the mayor has done, and they're asking, what about the police force? I'm not sure if they're asking about training that the chief has done or training that the mayor has done. But it says that is great that mayor has done this training. How about the police force? I'm not sure specifically which training they're talking about, though.
Would it be that I mentioned what we went through last fall? I would imagine. So last fall, I had the opportunity to gather together. I don't know. You could probably give more numbers than I did, but there was Mr. Jackson and his partner, Dr. Fran Kaplan, had public sessions in the morning, and then in the afternoons we broke into small groups, and it was focused on building multicultural diversity for community leaders. And we really had some deep dives into the discussion of the history of racism in this country, our biases. It was very intense and very enlightening for me. We've completed the interview process for Chief Needfeld. I would say he hadn't even started yet. And we had the conversation that he was going to come here and work, but he was still completing the rest of his time in Trempealeau. And I asked him to come to this training with me. But it was incredibly short notice and he couldn't do it at that time because it was a pretty sizable time commitment. But he was incredibly open to it. And so I can speak for what I've done at this point. And Rick, when we first talked about it, you said that you had been through something similar already. So.
Yes, just through the college, through the state, as yes, I have received constant diversity training, above and beyond any type of, I guess, training that's even required by the state. Is we go above and beyond just because we are utilizing it and making sure we do a train the trainer type of format to our departments. And this also, I should add, includes is I've been a first responder and fireman longer than I've actually been a cop. And that type of training, whether it's through medical assistance, which could be, well, are they intoxicated? No, and they might be diabetic. Are they, even the types of different forms and ideas that we bring forth for autistic individuals, whether it's nonverbal or verbal. Those type of trainings you receive intensely as an EMS, especially like if you go to a car accident or it's any other type of medical call, we receive those type of trainings, which we will bring forward to the law enforcement side of it as well. So these trainings, and not to be long-winded, but these trainings these type of diversity trainings and these concerns are literally brought up at every training, every in-house type of training. But then more importantly, like when I teach different agencies, so like at the college at Western TC, if we are doing a vehicle context instructor, we literally have, even though it's a vehicle context instructor, we will have dialogue and communications regarding that type of training, how it is implied with the type of training that they signed up for. So this is 100% continuous in the state of Wisconsin.
I'd like to just fill everyone in a little bit on the training that the mayor referred to. My company, Nurturing Diversity Partners, we have a relationship with a group of individuals in La Crosse. It goes back a couple years. We had done some trainings and workshops up there aligned with diversity, equity, inclusion issues. They asked us last year to come to actually assist them in a project that they were creating called Creating a Healthier Multicultural Community in La Crosse. And what it was, they wanted us, because we do facilitated dialogue. We have 24 facilitators that we've trained and that work with us to do small group facilitated dialogue. And they wanted us to train some of their facilitators there. So there were 24 community members that we went there on. I think we made 3 trips to La Crosse doing the training for those community members to become facilitators using the method that we utilize with our company. And then we came back in September as well as October. We did a public presentation on a Saturday morning, and that was followed. There were about 300 or so people from the community that were there. And then the group that did the facilitated dialogue were actually 48 community leaders, including your mayor. And they were very specifically picked because they were leaders from the, elected officials, the business community, police department, education. They wanted a broad range of people that they selected to be part of this group. So we did the public lecture that morning. That was followed by 2 sessions of facilitated dialogue, one that Saturday afternoon, another one that Sunday afternoon. That was in September. We came back in October. Fran and I did another public lecture on a different topic. And then that was followed by 2 more sessions of facilitated dialogue with that group. And so what we've heard from that group, the leaders as well as many members of that group, is that it has led to some significant change in La Crosse because people were able to sit down and have those conversations in a space that allowed people to be very open and honest. Having the 4 sessions with the people together allowed people to build a level of trust and get to know each other a little bit better. And that's kind of part of the philosophy that we believe in, is that this work requires people to come together multiple times. It's not just checking the box, get 1 session of diversity training and you're all set. It's a consistent, constant effort that people need to make. And a big part of it is really contextualizing how we got here, learning some of that history that we didn't learn in school so that we can kind of understand why these problems are so consistently talked about in communities of color. And there are just a handful more questions here in the chat, and we're going to get to allowing you all to chime in a moment. We'll unmute some of you. I just want to go through the last couple that are here. So let's see here. There was one that said, I would like a list of all of the trainings they attend on racism and extremist groups in the area, and if all police officers are required to attend those trainings.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that Nate and the mayor and I have actually talked about is building up our website to build, I guess, transparency. So to build, get our website up and put that type of training out there, that what we receive. Absolutely, we got to just have a format and an area to do that, correctly, which would be, in my opinion, the city website.
Okay, great. There were a couple comments, Chief, related to comments you made earlier about systemic racism. One person said, I feel like he just said racism doesn't exist in Viroqua. And then another person says, I'm really concerned with the Chief's answer about racism, open door policy, and 100% sure this doesn't exist in Viroqua. It's very concerning. So I don't know if you want to address those comments before we move on to the next. Just a couple more questions after that, Chief.
Yep. I'm sure is your systematic racism, which is, racism that is embedded in as a normal practice in within the society, is not within the Viroqua Police Department. 100%. I don't know if I said the city of Viroqua, if that's not say about the Viroqua Police Department, and if there actually was, we would be taking swift action like we've talked about in the past.
Okay. Mayor, do you have any comments you'd like to make addressing that as well?
Like I said, we can, I can say that what I heard the chief say was that he did not say there was no racism in Viroqua. From what I recall him saying, he was stating his beliefs on what's happening in the police department specifically. And as we can only do is continue to have those conversations about systematic racism. Where is that evident in our city government? Where is it evident in our city programs, our commissions, our committees, our police force, our fire department? And we can only continue to have those conversations with each other and identify and work through. Like I said, I'm not going to sit here and say that it doesn't exist, because what I have learned from my own experience, and I can only speak for me, is that you have to recognize it in yourself, what you didn't know was there before. And when you are able to open yourselves up to have that conversation and recognize what you might not have realized you were contributing to, then we're not going to make progress. And I can 100% say that we are committed to addressing what we can learn in our own city government.
Okay, thank you. The next question says, people of color have been verbally threatened here in Viroqua. What is the police department and the mayor going to do to make our city safer and address racism in our community?
Well, I guess, for me personally, I've had some people reach out to me and say that they're feeling like they were threatened, and I will always ask. I will go back to a conversation I had recently. I always try to understand where that person is coming from. And I always ask the basis of why you feel that way, what has happened. I personally try to get to the bottom of all the facts. But also, it's our role as community leaders and as the police department to be empathetic and patient and find out all of the facts and the truth and follow it through. I never try to dismiss it. But also, in the case that I had this week, people were concerned about threats, but until there's an actual threat, we can't address it. And so we have to stay within the law, but we have to take it, and we do take it very seriously, with empathy and patience and thoroughness and follow through.
Okay, great. So there are some more comments in chat, but I really want to just get through the questions so that we can open it up to people making remarks. Here is one other. Are the family backgrounds of potential police being assessed in the interview process, and ditto for interviewers?
For future reference, yes, it will be. Since I've been here, I did that in the past, and it's very beneficial during the background process.
All right, let's see. Here is another question. It says, for the mayor, chief, and city administrator, do Black Lives Matter?
I will answer that 100%. Black Lives Matter. And until all Black lives matter, all lives do not matter. And that is the purpose of this conversation.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Chief, Nate, you guys want to respond to that at all?
I would say absolutely. I mean, I think we see what's going on. We're listening to our folks. I think there's more conversations to be had. And I think the reinvigoration of this is a reinvigoration of the civil rights movement. So unequivocally, yes.
Okay.
And just to add with what Mayor said is, all lives don't matter until Black Lives Matter. But, Black Lives Matter. I think everybody deserves to be treated with fairness, dignity, and respect, period.
Okay. Let's see. I think there may be a couple more, and then we'll move on to asking people to respond verbally. Here is one that says, see if I can get to the question part of it. At what point is the mayor and the police going to shift the dialogue towards asking questions of the community and responding to what they believe would build trust?
Are we going to ask questions of the community?
Yeah.
I guess I didn't come to this meeting prepared with specific questions to ask other than to say, what do you need from us? I mean, that to me, I guess calling this meeting and bringing us all together was my way of saying to the community, what do you need? What can we do? What should we be hearing from you? What should we be learning in all of this?
I also wonder if that question is asking more about in this meeting right now. When are we going to shift to asking more questions? I don't know. I'm the same question came to me, and I'm just wondering if they're waiting for it to shift from maybe the chat to the more voice questions. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll be getting there shortly. I wanted to get through the last few questions. I don't know if the chief had a chance to respond to that one. And then I think there's maybe one more. And then we'll move into allowing people to speak out loud. So Chief, if you want to respond to that one, and then we'll move to the last chat question, and then we'll move on to people being able to speak out loud.
I would just echo exactly what the mayor just said is if it was more geared towards tonight's meeting, but we are accountable to the community, and I would be open to any type of suggestion or question or open dialogue, and every question or suggestion is.
Okay, great. So there's one more question, and then I'd actually like to respond to a couple comments that people made, and then we'll move on to having folks be able to speak out loud. And this is the last question we have in chat. Hi, saying I'm Black. If I decided to go out wearing a hoodie because they are comfortable, and someone thinks I'm suspicious and calls the cops, are the cops not immediately going to arrest me or shoot me when they see me?
Absolutely not. We would not do that at all. If we receive a phone call where we have an obligation to look into the incident, and that's where even community-oriented policing will come in play, whether our officers know them or find out that we might not even go talk to them. Period. I mean, but to think that is the case is no. That's not no.
Okay, great. And just kind of last thing I want to share before we open it up for people to ask questions out loud. There were a couple people that mentioned some things about the training that I spoke of earlier. And one of the things I want to just kind of let everyone know, I've been doing this type of training for close to 20 years now. My business partner, Fran, has been engaged in this for decades as well. And a big part of what we find when we go to communities, and we've done work in 35 different communities around the state of Wisconsin, as far north as Wausau, in La Crosse, out in Platteville, Burlington, Racine, Kenosha, Milwaukee, and all of its suburbs, Madison, Green Bay. We've been all over the state, 35 different communities. And one of the things that we always want to kind of inform people about is that when it comes to racism and all the different forms of racism, that people don't always understand the clear definitions of what they are. People have their own definitions of differences. So when you talk about institutional racism or systemic racism, structural racism. People have different definitions, and because people have different definitions, they may have different perceptions of what systemic racism is. And I don't think that means that a person is necessarily disagreeing. It's just they have maybe a different interpretation. One of the things that I like to just offer the mayor, moving forward, is I would love to be able to have an opportunity to come back to your town and do some of the training that we did for the folks in the cross to kind of clarify some of those things, because I think that it's important that we all have clear definitions so that we're all on the same page. When we're talking about something, if we have different definitions, it's very difficult for us to come to kind of a consensus on what the issues are. So I think, Nate, it's time for us to open it up to folks to, ask questions verbally. So we're done with chat for now. Appreciate you all submitting questions, comments through chat, those questions that were sent ahead of time. We appreciate all of those. And now you'll have an opportunity to share. And once again, I want to remind everyone that due to the fact that we don't have a whole lot of time left, we plan to be finishing around 9 o'clock or so. We ask that you, if you submit a comment or question, we ask that you limit it to about 2 minutes or so. And just for the sake of being democratic in this, we will make sure that if you go too long, sorry to tell you, but we're going to have to mute you and answer the part of the question you got in. We just want to make sure that as many people have an opportunity to chime in with their comments or questions as possible. So don't take it personal if we mute you, but we're going to give you about 2 minutes or so. So be succinct in your questions and comments, and we'll try to get as many of you in as we possibly can. So I'll let Nate kind of figure out who out there is trying to get a question or comment in.
Absolutely. So what I'll also say on top of that is there were a few folks who had sent me messages or questions. Please feel free to raise those out loud. We did not intend to not bring those up. We just simply ran out of time. So the first person was actually somebody who submitted a question well ahead of time. Their question is a little bit more complex, so I wanted to give that person, and then I see Erin has her hand up, and we'll get to Erin next. So Tom, if you would like to pop in with your 2 to 3 minute question as soon as I find you at the bottom of the list here and unmute you, go right ahead. Tom, I think you got to unmute your line.
Hi, thank you. I'm Tom Wilson, Railroad Avenue. I'd like to thank Mr. Jackson, Chief Neifelt, and all the officials for their time on this. I think it's a great event. I had actually submitted a fairly long description of an incident that just happened to me. I initially had written it to send to Chief Neifelt, but then given this forum was on, I decided to raise it here. And I'll very briefly describe the incident and then show the two, and then read the 2 questions that I had associated with it. About 9 days ago on Sunday morning, I had a visit at my house from a Viroqua police officer who drove into my driveway and knocked on my door. I got up, put on my face mask, and went to the door. And there he was standing without a face mask and about 2 feet from about where I was standing, and was there to inform me that, in his opinion, my lawn was out of compliance with the city weed and noxious weed and lawn ordinance. I contest this point, and in fact explain in great detail in my report why it wasn't. But in fact, I had just the day before, after a series of several days of rain, started mowing the front area. So the area down by the road had just been mowed, and the officer admitted that he noted that I was, essentially actively, maintaining my property. He was very polite, and I'm not saying that he was in any way harassing, but particularly afterwards, it struck me that this was kind of very inappropriate. City ordinance does not authorize police to intervene on these matters. There's another very simple written proposal or procedure for this. And thinking back on it, it kind of, because lawn mowing and weeds have been a very contentious thing in our community in the past.
Excuse me, Tom. I don't want to interrupt you, but you're quickly running out of time. Could you go ahead and ask your 2 questions very quickly, please? Sorry to interrupt you. My apologies.
Okay. My 2 questions are: is it an appropriate department procedure for armed police officers to arbitrarily enter an individual's property to make an unannounced, unwarranted on-site visitation to a person's home without authorization under city ordinance, especially when there is no apparent violation or any indication intent to violate a minor civil misdemeanor ordinance? Question 2 is it an appropriate police department procedure in this age of global pandemic for Viroqua's officers to make personal contact with vulnerable populations, of which I am part, without adhering to the recommended precautions of either PPE, face masks, or maintaining safe social distancing when there is no immediate or long-term threat to either persons or property?
Well, thank you so much for that, Tom. We appreciate it. We'll go ahead and allow the mayor as well as police chief to respond to that if they choose. Thanks, Tom.
Mayor, you want to go first or second?
Go ahead.
Right. Tom, thank you for your question. We, as law enforcement in the city of Viroqua, we enforce all ordinances. In a perfect world, again, where we can have a panel of citizens where we can come up with different ideas, I would love to take the property maintenance off my plate. I don't wish to enforce that. However, we are the agencies that look at that. We have to look at all those ordinances. They are there. We enforce ordinances. Regarding the contact that the officer had with you, is the U.S. Constitution has a thing that's called curtilage. It's just like any male officer or male personnel, UPS individual making contact at your house. Your curtilage, we can't go like around your house. We can't go in your house. We can come up to your front door and make contact with you through the U.S. Constitution. And regarding the PPEs that our officers have, it is still a little bit limited right now. So they are under the guidance of CDC within the 6 feet. If they were within the 6 feet, yes, they should be wearing the mask. They do have masks, gowns, goggles, all that PPEs available to them. But regarding, just a quick brief conversation, they would be taking the guidance of the CDC within the 6 feet.
Okay. Next up we have Aaron. Aaron, if you would like to go ahead, you should be able to unmute your line and speak.
Great, thank you. My part is twofold. The first part is, what are the affirmative action plans or policy that the city is going to be implementing in the next 2 years? And I'm wondering what the plans are to implement a community appointed or formed and led, not mayoral, city council appointed and led, but a community appointed and led task force that works as an objective accountability body and liaison between the community and police and or city, as we have been seeing so successful in other cities.
All right, thank you for that, Aaron.
I can
I can address this. The second one. The second one would be, of course, we are open to having a conversation of what that looks like. If anybody comes to me and says, this is our idea and this is what, as I said, I'm here and I want to talk about it and look at what it is. And I know we have council people who want to have those discussions. We have other people in the community that want to have those discussions. And, I try to be as available to look at what we can implement as possible. And if you have something, then bring it to me.
So I'll jump as well in here as well. One of the things that I've heard along, and I think the chief has tried to articulate this, is that it's important to build these types of structures and programs, not for communities, but with communities. I think that's a little bit of maybe what Erin was said in there. She wants to know what we're going to do, what our action steps are. Just in my head, I think we want to go down that path with our community. And so we don't have all the answers yet. And I think it's okay to admit that. But we want to find them, and we want to find what the right structures are. And I think that was in some ways what Rick was maybe articulating. Rick, stop me if I'm misspeaking, but we got to have that input coming to us, and we want to have that open dialogue in order to get to these structures that deliver the equality and the racial justice in our community that everybody wants. And so I guess that's just my piece. I've been doing a lot of talking in Syrian, and that's been on the top of my brain. So I will say that, and I will go back to moderating.
Okay. I don't know if the chief wanted to respond to that at all. And then I had a few things I wanted to say to Erin as well. Chief, I don't know if you wanted to respond to that.
No, I second everything that the mayor and Nate just advised regarding the affirmative action. Initial question is, we are guidance under, Wisconsin compliance law through the state. So that's how I'd answer that question. There's state requirements that, do that. So, but then yes, Nate, you hit it on the head regarding your question, or what my foresight was as well. So hopefully that answered your question, Erin.
Yeah, and Erin, some of the same questions that you raised, concerns, are being raised here in Milwaukee as well. We also have a fire and police commission. There has been a very vocal group of community folks that have been trying for a number of years now to have more of a voice, kind of what they consider to be an independent voice, because all of the members of the Fire and Police Commission are appointed by the mayor's office. And they have had some conversations with our common council, as well as the mayor's office. And it looks like there is some movement in that direction here in Milwaukee, to have more voices as part of the conversation. And I think that that's a very healthy way to have that relationship between the police department and the community. I think oftentimes we look at that as an adversarial relationship, and it'll always be an adversarial relationship until we're able to kind of sit down together, bring the parties together to have those conversations. I think that that's something, obviously, that any community could benefit from. It appears to me that the chief and the mayor, as well as Nate, are receptive to having people who have those plans. Bring it together. Bring those people together to have those conversations. That's an important part of the process. We're all in this together, and we need to work to build collaborative efforts. We're seeing this in a lot of communities around the country, and it's a healthy thing. It helps the police department. In Milwaukee, there are several police officers that I know personally. I know multiple retired police officers, and I have conversations with them all the time. And we even had a group here that I used to be a part of, the Zeitler Center for Public Discussion, that actually for 2 years did community police dialogue. So they used facilitators, and they brought active police officers to these forums to meet with community members, to talk. And they really got to know one another really, really well. I've always said this, is that the way that we see police is really a function of what we see in very bad police dramas on television, very bad movies. I call them propaganda shows. They don't really show you the reality of what policing is like. And I can say personally that I've learned a great deal more about what being a police officer is from having personal conversations with police officers in Milwaukee. A lot of the things that I thought were part of policing, I found out that they were completely untrue. And I think it's important to have those conversations so that the officers can share with the community, the the role of policing is from their perspective. And I think when you're able to get those perspectives, a lot of misunderstandings between the police and the community can be resolved. I've seen it work here in Milwaukee. And I know that there are efforts to do those things in other communities. I'm hoping that, this is part of what happens moving forward in Viroqua as well. So Nate, do we have anyone else who had a hand raised?
We have, I believe it's Josh, who's under somebody else's name. Josh, I'm going to go ahead and try to find you somewhere. 1 second. Sorry, I should be more quick on the buttons here. Okay, Josh, go ahead.
Kind of wanted to make a challenge that to the chief and to the police department and to those of us who are predominantly the white culture. I've had the privilege of not having to consider race most of my life, and the last couple of months has been a crash course in reading books, listening to podcasts, listening to friends and people affected, and understanding why this is going on. I know the second civil rights movement, a new wave, was more than overdue and important. And I think that I would challenge you and the police force to go after those resources outside of required training. Find the books. There's a whole bunch of recommended resources right now. Find the podcasts. Seen on Radio, Seen White is an excellent podcast to understand the history of this stuff. And I'd also like to address Reggie and say that if you bring that training to our municipality, is that something that the community can participate in and maybe even make the training cheaper for the municipality by us getting to be in the same room and take the training together. So that's, just a challenge, and then a question about the potential for training in our community to be open to law enforcement, city council, and community members all together.
Sure. I'll go ahead and answer your question, then I'll let the chief and the mayor and Nate respond. In terms of the training that we did in La Crosse was completely a community-based affair. These were community members that got together, that formed, creating a healthy multicultural community. They selected the community leaders in the police department, the elected officials, private sector companies. They selected the people themselves. They interviewed them, asked if they were willing to be part of the conversation. So I think that that's a process that, you all can start. I always say that every movement starts with one individual who has a good idea, and then you just basically find other people who are like-minded. Obviously, from what you were sharing, Josh, there are a lot of resources out there that people just aren't familiar with. And I think when people do more learning, I always say it's a process. It's a two-step process. It's a matter of learning, but also unlearning. There's a lot that we need to unlearn that are inaccurate depictions of people, of a variety of different people that have been marginalized in American society. And I think that, if you were able to offer a list of some of those resources, we have resource lists that we hand out when we do our workshops, things that you can read, books, documentaries you can watch, podcasts that are really good, memoirs that people have written. I think those are all really a part of getting to know the lived experiences of other people. I think it's really incredibly important to do that. Me personally, I tell people that about 4 years ago, I made a concerted effort. I told myself that I wanted to get out of my little bubble and get to know people in as many different communities in Milwaukee as I could. So I began to reach out to people in our Latino community, in our Asian American community, in our Native American community, in the LGBTQ plus community, through all of the religious communities, made friends in the Jewish community, the Muslim community, Unitarian community, the Baptist community, Lutheran community. I really made it a concerted effort to get to know as many people as I could. And we've been able now to take that and do work in all of those communities. We've done workshops with multiple faith-based organizations. We've done workshops with all of our local school districts here in Milwaukee, several of our suburban school districts. I think it's really a matter of kind of getting out of our little box that we live in and engaging in conversation with other people, bringing people together, Josh, that have the same mindset that you have, and then working collaboratively with the power brokers in town. with the people that are the public officials that make the decisions. You have to engage them in those conversations. You can't just expect them to do it on their own. Bring those resources to them and then start a dialogue. That's what they did in La Crosse, and it's been, a really successful venture there. We hear back from those folks there consistently that a lot of the things that came out of that, particularly from the standpoint of those leaders that were part of it, and obviously your mayor was one of those leaders that was part of the dialogues, they came away with some really good ideas, and, we offered some solution-based things for them to work on as individuals, but organizations. So I think that, if this is something that you want to see, Josh, listen, man, get that Rolodex out and get the names of folks that you think would be interested in helping you, and just make it happen, and happen very organically in La Crosse. Make it happen the same way there. So I don't know if any of the other participants, the mayor, chief, or Nate wanted to comment on Josh. Thank you for sharing that, Josh. We appreciate that. And so let's move on, Nate, unless someone else would like to respond to Josh's remarks.
I'll just say, Josh, that, when the idea to have this meeting came to mind, because of my experience with working with Fran Kaplan and Mr. Jackson, that's what I wanted to bring here, because it was so important, and I learned a lot of things that I didn't even realize that I needed to learn. And this, like we've said at the beginning, this is the first step, having this meeting to open up, to just let everybody know that we are willing and we want to be able to work with the community, and we want to be able to have the resources and to know, but this is a learning process. And Rick and I'm sure, have probably said many things throughout the course of this evening that people are not going to agree with or take offense with, or that we have said wrong. We are certainly not perfect, and we will have said something over the course of all of our interactions with people incorrectly. But the only way that we can get past that is from having people like you and other people in the community that want to continue to have the dialogue and have Reggie back. And we've already talked to him about what's our next step, and we've made a commitment with the city to hire nurturing diversity partners to help us with this process. So.
Okay, Nate, you want to take it from
Sure.
there? Or is anyone else?
Yeah.
We're running low on time.
Jennifer, if you want to go ahead, I unmuted your line. If you want to go ahead and speak.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm curious about the data that Viroqua Police Department might share with other law enforcement, such as the Joint Terrorism Task Force, FBI, ICE, and Homeland Security, and whether the Viroqua Police Department would collaborate with ICE deportation-related arrests.
Thank you for that question. Regarding ICE, no, we do not have that relationship with them. Regarding the FBI, or your first question, sharing the data, that data is 100% shared through, I guess, our state requirements, actually federal law, that it is uniform-based reporting. It is available 100% on the FBI's website, which you can search by Wisconsin, you can search by county, you can search by municipality. That is available. I have to report that. It is a monthly statistic. Those are available. Those are what I mean by uniform-based reporting or incident-based reporting. Is it will show you, anybody that would be arrested, their skin color, their age, the offense. So those are reported and shared right now on. You could, as soon as we're done with this meeting, you can go to their website and do that, and be curious of Milwaukee as well. It doesn't have to be just Viroqua. You're curious about Chicago. You're curious about Dubuque, Iowa. You can look it up. That is a federal regulation through the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I think that was all your questions. Did I hit them all?
Yeah. And those reports are known on the FBI's website as Uniform Crime Reports. So if you just Google FBI UCR or Uniform Crime Reports, you can go, just as the chief said, you can look at all of the municipalities around the country that participate. And I believe that something like 85% of all police departments and sheriff departments and things of that nature do report their data. So you know, I use that website quite a bit, looking up data to share with people. So there's a lot of good stuff you can find there. And the data goes back years as well. You can look at, you know, up-to-date data as well as stuff from previous years. It's a really good resource. And it helps, you know, us as community members to kind of be able to kind of see what's going on in our own communities. That data that we wouldn't be able to find otherwise is really kind of good. I think Jennifer wanted to follow up. Nate?
There we go.
Thanks. I think the sort of collective data is helpful, but I was also thinking about, does Viroqua Police Department provide data, for example, as part of investigations? So, you know, information about specific people in the community, does that get shared with the feds?
Does that get shared with the feds? No, it does not. Our collective data that we do kind of like in-house, I would encourage everybody to come to a public safety meeting. Those would be kind of done. I used to do them biannually, so we would do those in July and January, just so the city council, it would first start at public safety, but then the city council would then have all of our numbers, what are our I guess resources being allocated to, what are, you know, what are our officers kind of, what's the nature of the calls that they're kind of going to. Those are available through, you know, our public safety. So I encourage you guys to regularly attend our public safety where you're going to know those answers.
I think if I can ask Jennifer a question. Jennifer, were you specifically asking about, in an investigation, is the race of the person shared, or is that, was it more specifically about what type of information is shared, or just in general, is it being shared outside of Viroqua? Because I don't believe that it goes anywhere unless it's a federal, or, you know, I mean, if it's in Viroqua, it stays here.
Right. I'm talking more about, I guess my concern is mostly around things like, for example, Black identity groups have been designated as domestic terrorist groups. And, you know, for example, if we as Viroqua activists are interested in supporting the Black Lives Matter movement, do we, you know, does that information get filtered to the feds as like, you know, people to watch kind of thing? And, you know, I don't think I'm being paranoid. There's a long history of local law enforcement participating in that federal persecution of legitimate social movements. Mm-hmm. So there's so much data, right? I'm asking about multiple things, but this is, to fine point my question, that's where I'm at now.
Oh, no, that's not shared.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jennifer, for that. Appreciate that. Nate, did we have anyone else who had their hands raised to add questions?
Yep. So we have Denise. Denise, you can go ahead and unmute your line and share your question or comment.
Thank you. So I just want to let the mayor and everyone who's here that the majority of people of color are here at this meeting, which is super significant. And I yield my time to Dodie's dad.
Okay. Thank you. Let me get Dodie and her dad up here real quick. Go ahead.
Hopefully we'll have time to hear from Denise too, because I really.
Yeah, we only have about 5 minutes left. So Dodie, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Reggie. Thank you for coming and being part of this. This is Reverend Dr. Calvin Morris.
Dodie's dad, Calvin. I am a minister PhD, worked with Dr. King and Jesse Jackson, worked with Mrs. King after Dr. King's assassination as executive director of the Martin Luther King Center for Social Change in Atlanta, Georgia. I grew up in Philadelphia, and one of my forebears was the first Black policeman in a section of Philadelphia, which was then and now a kind of upper class place. So my initial understanding of policeship was that of a gentleman who was in that community. He got to know all the kinds and types of people, Jewish and Italian, etc., and so forth. And he was very much affirmed. The struggle we have today, it seems to me, is that we have such a history in this country in terms of racial inequality. We have people who come from families, some of them from the South. They may be in parts of families where there are white nationalists and all that rest.
And sir, I don't want to interrupt you, but we're running out of time. We want to make sure that you can get your question in. And
well, my question is that in terms of the training of policemen, you really need to know their background. I'm not talking about, a nice grandfather and all that kind of stuff. But if they have backgrounds that are a part of your white nationalists, people who were related to slavery, so that they would be upset about the monuments coming down of the slave owners, etc., and so forth. And if they come with the kind of sensitivity about their own selfhood, and the fact that they might be approach a young Black man, for instance,
Dr. Morris,
and the way that is often
I hate to cut you off again, sir, but we have one other person who wants to get a question.
All I'm trying to get at, what I'm trying to get at, give me another sentence. What I'm trying to get at is they need to understand the background of which those people come, because if they meet a young Black person in this day and say the wrong thing, they may be shot to death.
Okay. Well, thank you. We appreciate that input, Dr. Morris. Didn't mean to be rude to you, sir.
That's okay. I don't mean to be
It's important. You raised some very important points. Thank you so much for sharing that. Greatly appreciate it. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
So my apologies.
Okay. Tim, did you want to speak? Oh, did I get you? Are you muted again? Sorry, Tim, go ahead.
Yeah, hello. Well, thanks. Everybody's probably tired and wants to get out of here, but I just wanted to mention a couple things. Some people brought up some things that they were concerned about, like to see happen, and there's some legislation that is out there. I could talk forever on a lot of this because I've been involved with so many different aspects of this over the last 20 years, watching city and county government and local court system. But there is some legislation. I've worked in local media. For those of you that don't know me, currently working for Congressman Kind. And there is some legislation that would provide funding for some of the things people were talking about, just so you're aware of it. And the Democrats in Congress have proposed the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. And I would encourage you to look it up. It's got, I was just trying to figure out exactly what's in there, and they've got 32 points actually that it addresses. So there's a lot of things in there. It's been endorsed by the NAACP, and I see today it was endorsed by the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. So it's getting a lot of support. Republicans in the Senate have their own bill that we don't think quite goes far enough and is kind of watered down. So I would encourage you to look that up. And one of the things it has in there is some grant money for community organizations like Aaron was talking about, and I think Josh was talking about. So actually some money available to form those kind of organizations. I would encourage everybody to attend the Police and Fire Commission meetings. I covered them in the media over the years, and generally nobody comes to those. So one way to oversee your local police and fire commission is to oversee them by going to the meetings and just attending. That forces them to be very, very public and transparent about things. And then there are a bunch of other bills in Congress besides the George Floyd Act, and they address a number of things. And there's kind of two paths. You know, the low-hanging fruit of addressing, you know, police tactics, training methods, things like that, but then also things that kind of address the longer-term, more difficult things to change, like, you know, police culture and, you know, unconscious bias, things like that. So there are a number of things in these bills. I would encourage you to check them out, and if you support them, call your congressman. You don't have to call us on the George Floyd because we help co-sponsor that, unless you have something you want to see changed about it. But look who supports it and who doesn't support it and what you'd like to see passed. That's a great place to start. And thank you for holding this meeting. It's obviously there's a lot more to say because there's a lot of people on here. It's amazing.
Yeah, thank you for those comments, Tim. You know, we've been on now for 3 hours plus. It's been a great session. We appreciate all of you who stuck around throughout the process. You know, just as Tim said, you know, this is just the beginning. This is the first step in this process. Obviously, you know, there's a lot more that could be said, a lot more questions that could be addressed. And I'm hoping that, you know, those of you who did participate feel that, you know, you were able to have your voices heard. We did go through, I believe, over 50 questions from community members. And, you know, I'm always of the mindset that there's always more that we can do. And there's more that we can learn. And part of what people have to learn about this work, and I say this to all of the people that I work with in all of the communities, whether it be here in Wisconsin or the work I've done in Detroit and Chicago and Newark, New Jersey, Charlotte, North Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina, Houston, Dallas, Austin, Texas, Minneapolis, all of these different places. I tell people the same thing, that it's a process. And there is no recipe. People want a recipe. How do we fix it? Listen, if there was a recipe, someone would have come up with it a long time ago, and they'd be the richest person on the planet Earth. There is no recipe to fix these issues. It requires us to do a lot of concerted work within our communities. I always say this as well, that when it comes to dealing with police, you have to do it on a community by community level. What works in Viroqua doesn't necessarily work in La Crosse or in Chicago or in Ferguson or Minneapolis or Milwaukee or Chicago or New York. Every community needs to take it upon themselves to work on those issues that they see that are specific to their community. That's where real solutions come from. Just like they say when it comes to politics, all politics is local. I believe all reform efforts are local. And even though there are things done on the federal and state level, the most powerful things that are done on a local level. And it includes the voices of those community members that are intimately involved, intimately concerned, intimately familiar with their dynamics of their community. That's where the real change comes from. And so I want to give the chief and the mayor and Nate an opportunity to say their final words. Appreciate you all asking me to be part of this. I've really enjoyed it. And hope to be back in Viroqua, either virtually or in person, doing some work moving forward. But we'll leave the final words to the mayor and the Chief of Police. And once again, I want to personally thank you all for chiming in. It's been a great pleasure for me. Thank you, Mayor, for reaching out to me. Thank you, Chief, for sitting in and being a part of this. I think it's important that your voice is heard, especially since, as you said, the COVID has prevented you from really getting to know the community and them getting to know you. So I'm hoping that tonight was a good opportunity for all of you. So Mayor and Chief, he'll give you the final words.
Rick, go ahead.
No, I just, like you just said, you said it so much more eloquently than I ever could. But I can't reassure you guys to please understand that this isn't, this is an open dialogue. This is the very first step. That is something that I am passionate about. So if you guys have concerns, you don't feel comfortable coming to me, please contact the mayor. And we will come to a solution that works, like you just said, works for the city of Viroqua. So please, please have an open dialogue. Please be open to new ideas. Please be open to contacting us.
Nate here. I would like to cede my time in favor of us circling back to Dr. Morris's question. Unfortunately, there I got a little ahead of myself due to our time constraints here, and I skipped over the response portion. So I'll take responsibility for that, folks. We had a lot of good people in chat letting me know that we skipped over that. And in the spirit of this being a dialogue and people overwhelming asking that, Rick, I'm wondering if you can take this time and just respond to that. I believe it was about really making sure we're understanding who we're hiring, looking at the backgrounds of the people we entrust to enforce our rules and treat people fairly.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna, when our spent, keep treat everybody fairly, but that background check is extensive. I can't speak on other agencies, but I can reassure to the doctor that that is going to be the practice of the Viroqua Police Department. Like I said before, I can teach anybody to be a cop, but you can't teach character, and that's the character that we got to find out about, because we cannot have that here in Viroqua, period. So I can reassure you that the background checks are extensive. I can also just say, for a civilian side of it, we are going to be, it's not just me either. It's not just what my decisions are. This is a police and fire commission. This is a public safety commission. There is, I don't do the math right now, but there's probably 20 people involved in this hiring process. So it's not just going to be what I find in a background check or what your faith is here. There is checks and balances, set aside in the city of Viroqua.
Karen or Mayor?
Yeah, I mean, Jody, if you could just nod. Does he feel like his question was answered? Oh, there you are. Can we unmute him?
Yeah. Hold on one second.
I just wanted to ask if you feel like your question was answered.
Well, I think in some ways it was answered. I just think that the depth of our history around race in the United States, that it's very important to recognize something. The gentleman who spoke before me from here, and he was talking about the police, was talking to him about his lawn. I will tell you that if he had spoken, if he challenged that officer, if he happened to be black, and he challenged that officer about what he was saying, he might be dead now. What I'm saying to you and to the head of the police here, and I appreciate his what he's trying to do, that he has to understand that we have a history where police, particularly if they are dealing with Black people, and if the Black people don't show up or don't speak the way they want them to speak, or if they appear to look down upon them, or et cetera and so forth, and those policemen have feelings, self-feelings about themselves, which are not very strong and very high, they could kill him and tell the lawyer, or what do you call them in these departments around the country, that he felt for his life. And if he said that, he would go free. And that's what a lot of these police unions do. They, whatever the policeman does, they back him up or her. And you have to be sensitive to this in terms of who comes in to govern and protect your people in your community.
Thank you for that. I think with that, we'll finish up the meeting. All I can say is that I want to thank everybody for coming and listening and hopefully learning and starting to talk about these things. Can I promise that we will never have problems in Viroqua? No. I would not be responsible in my duties to say that we will never have to face racism in Viroqua. And I would not be responsible in my leadership by saying that I can predict how anybody in this city is going to conduct themselves. What I can say is that as the mayor of this city, I do care about how people of color feel in this community. And do you feel like you've been heard? And I want to have that dialogue. And I appreciate the incredibly open conversation that the chief and I have, and very open. I'm sure Chief Needfeld, his career path was not in PR, and he's really been put on the spot. I was put on the spot with this, but he was really put on the spot because this is really his first introduction to you. And I just want to say that, you know, I hope that what he said was taken for truly caring about this community and being sincere in both of our commitments to do everything that we can to hold our police department accountable for their actions to everybody in this community. And with that, we will continue to have a conversation with nurturing diversity partners and with the rest of the community. And again, just thank you all for coming.
Well, thank you very much.
But with that,
thank you very much.
So we do need to have a motion to adjourn before anybody can leave, but I can't let the council leave until they agree that they get to leave. So
we're in good shape.
We'd have to unmute any of them. It looks like Cindy's raising.
Boy. Are we just looking for a
motion to adjourn?
David, I got to you. Gregory, I got to you.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
John, got to you, I think.
Gregory's unmuted. So we have a motion by Gregory and a second by Cindy.
Oh, nope. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. I can't see everybody, but we'll do an overwhelming voice vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you, everybody.